Hello everyone, if you're new to my channel, consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do that. Thanks. By the way, I also have another Naruto and Luffy fanfiction channel. If you are interested, link is in the description.
One Piece Talent Copy System by dragonnx. In the vast and perilous world of One Piece, with a seas teeming with pirates, marines, and untold mysteries, a young man is given a second chance at life. Reincarnated into this fantastical universe, he discovers he possesses a unique and powerful copy talent system, an ability that allows him to copy the talents and skills of others, including Double Fruits. Member list: Taz Peterson, Yanko, Leilani Morris, Warlord, Garrick Russell, Warlord, Black Money Young Lion, Warlord, KSGPL 4YZ, Warlord, Adio.
Chapter 51. In the Endless Desert, Noir, disguised as Crocodile, made his way to his destination. Noir had a map of Alabasta in the shop and found the way to the City of Rain Dinners. The luxurious Rain Dinners casino, built with a massive investment by Crocodile under his Shichibukai status, was also located there. Transforming into sand, Noir undoubtedly had the environmental buff of the desert. Merging his body with the ground, it took Noir little effort to find Rain Dinners. The City of Rain Dinners, known as the City of Dreams, was the wealthiest place in Alabasta next to the capital. From afar, Rain Dinners' greenery and water sources stood out against the surrounding yellow desert. After tidying up his clothes, Noir walked into Rain Dinners with his head held high. He hadn't taken more than a few steps into the town when a crowd of citizens looked at him with admiring eyes. "Sir Crocodile, Sir Shichibukai is such a strong man. Ah, I love you, Sir Crocodile." It seemed that Crocodile had played his role as the country's hero quite well. Noir thought to himself in amazement. The popularity of this guy in the city was far beyond Noir's imagination. Almost all the citizens sincerely admired and worshipped this foreign pirate. Even some young girls looked at Noir with eyes that were both shy and inviting. Unfortunately, Sandman was just an unromantic brute. In order to maintain this persona, Noir kept a cold expression on his face, completely ignoring the citizens who considered him a hero. The citizens were also used to it. Lord Shichibukai was always like this, silently driving away enemies and never craving the people's adoration. A true hero. At the Rain Dinners, wherever Noir went, there were cheers and passionate looks. Basking in this enthusiasm, Noir found his own establishment, the Rain Dinners Casino. If Rain Dinners seemed out of place in the desert, the scale of this casino was even more striking compared to the city. The massive casino had both a front hall and a backyard. Expensive jade tiles covered the floor and water resources were abundant. There were even some fish playing happily in the front yard. The design of the casino was quite interesting. Noir crossed a stone bridge over the water before he saw the main entrance of the Rain Dinner Casino. When Noir pushed open the door, the guards at the entrance were surprised, but quickly opened the door respectfully for him. After Noir entered, the guards wondered, didn't Sir Crocodile just go out? How did he get back so fast? Yes, and his clothes have changed, and even his golden hook is gone. They didn't discuss it any further when the patrol captain came over and said sternly, "Let's talk. Do you think you can gossip about the Lord?" The guards immediately shut up and stood at attention. Inside the casino, Noir was dazzled by the lavish decorations. The term opulent was no exaggeration here. Luxurious items such as gold carvings and gems were commonplace. Many well-dressed men and women were absorbed in the gambling tables, shouting enthusiastically. The scene was lively and orderly, more like a sophisticated club for the upper class than an ordinary casino. After taking a look inside the casino, a plump man in a black suit with a mustache rushed over with a submissive smile on his quivering cheeks. "Boss, you said you were going out for business? Done already?" Noir glanced at him, guessing that he must be the manager Crocodile had appointed to run the casino. Using Crocodile's seductive voice, Noir nodded, "Just a few little things, done quickly." Noir, pretending to care about his subordinate, patted the manager's shoulder. "Hey, fatty. I have a question." The manager, swaying under the force, gritted his teeth against the pain and smiled. "Boss, you're too kind. What do you need?" Noir smiled like an old fox, pulled the manager into a corner and asked directly, "Where are the casino's profits kept?" "Huh?" The manager looked at Noir suspiciously. How could the boss not know? Seeing his expression, Noir knew he was getting suspicious, so he said sternly, "What are you looking at? I deal with countless things every day, isn't it normal to forget such small details?" But the manager tried to say something, but Noir grabbed his chubby shoulder with such force that he almost gasped for breath. Then Noir held out his hand, and a small sandstorm formed in his palm, making the manager close his eyes against the blowing sand. Then the cold voice of his boss reached his ears. "Boy, do you think someone could impersonate me, the Shichibukai?" The manager trembled with fear. That's right, controlling sand was a unique ability of the boss. How could it be copied? The manager struggled to open his sand-filled eyes and tearfully apologized. "Spare me, boss, I mistook you for someone else." Noir finally withdrew his ability, satisfied, and patted the promising fatty, saying, "That's better. Come on, take me there." The manager nodded hastily, bowing and scraping as he led Noir to his office. Descending the stairs, Noir quickly entered Crocodile's private domain. The walls were glass, containing water and crocodiles, arranged with simple elegance, very much in Crocodile style. The manager led Noir to a corner of the room where a large safe was set into the wall. With an obsequious smile, the manager said, "Boss, here it is. You know the password, right?" Noir waved his hand nonchalantly. "Of course, you may go now." "Yes, sir," the manager replied and left the office. On his way out, the more he thought about it, the more uneasy he felt, but he quickly shook off these thoughts. Same appearance, same skills, how could there be such a coincidence? After sending the curious manager away, Noir, who had maintained his demeanor, couldn't hold back anymore. He pressed Crocodile's face against the wall, his eyes shining with dollar signs, and giggled foolishly. Mine, he, all of his wealth is mine." 140 Chapter 52. The password to the safe. Of course Noir didn't have it. But in the world of pirates, could a safe really keep things safe? Noir put his hand into the crack of the door, applied a little force, and his whole body turned into fine sand that flowed inside. Who uses the front door after eating devil fruit these days? Wait, how was he supposed to take the money out? Meanwhile, Crocodile, who was out hunting for Noir, had no idea that his house was being robbed. Following the direction given by Miss Doublefinger, he quickly followed. But after running almost halfway across Alabasta, why hadn't he even seen Noir's shadow? Could it be that he had ascended directly to the sky? Crocodile's patience was wearing thin. Despite the blazing sun, his aura was cold. Damn, did Miss Doublefinger lie? Finally, Crocodile decided to give up the chase and head back the way he came. After a long journey, a dusty Crocodile returned to the Spider Cafe. When he entered the shop, it was deserted. Crocodile looked around in confusion, a sense of foreboding rising in him. After some searching, Crocodile ended up in the secret room. The first thing he saw was Miss Doublefinger, Paula, lying unconscious on the floor, undressed and looking like she'd been attacked. The feeling of foreboding grew. A sympathetic Crocodile gently slapped Paula's face. She awoke in pain, her eyes wide with confusion as she looked at the Crocodile. "Who are you?" Paula asked in confusion, then suddenly covered her chest in terror and screamed. "Where are my clothes?" Crocodile jumped at her high-pitched scream, then grabbed her by the neck and yelled, "I'm Mr. Zero, what happened here?" With her throat grabbed, Paula's face turned purple. She quickly said, "Boss, that newcomer knocked me out. Noir turned into me." "What?" Crocodile stared at her in shock. "Turned into others? Wasn't that Mr. Two's devil fruit ability? Wait, could it be?" Crocodile's face turned red. His casino, damn Noir. Crocodile had no time to think about why someone had Mr. Two's ability. He had only one thought in his head now. To dehydrate the impertinent kid and throw him into the desert. Paula, shivering in a corner, felt helpless and pitiful as Crocodile stormed out. First stripped, then slapped. Was this Crocodile's twisted act or Noir's depravity? Meanwhile, in the casino, Noir, who had infiltrated Crocodile's little vault, was thoroughly mesmerized by the treasure. Enjoying himself, Noir lay in the pile of gold and silver jewelry and threw handfuls of money into the air. This vault probably held all of the casino's profits. Besides, Crocodile probably had Baroque works that would bring him more money. Thinking about this, Noir felt a little jealous. As a Shichibukai, Crocodile must be making a fortune every day. But there was too much treasure to carry out, and considering the time, Crocodile should return soon. Noir, troubled by the room full of gold and berries, tried to pack a large bag, but could only take less than a tenth of it. Unless. Noir's eyes brightened and a mischievous smile appeared on his lips. Turning back into the domineering CEO Crocodile, Noir placed his hand on the door of the vault room. Suna Suna no Mi, sand transformation. Using the power of Suna Suna no Mi, the door touched by Noir's hand was instantly eroded by sand, creating a large hole. Noir scoffed. Who uses doors anymore? After breaking open the door, Noir called over the person in charge, Fatty. When Fatty arrived, his whole face was stunned. Where was the door? Where was the vault door? Ignoring his expression, Noir waved him over and whispered in his ear. Fatty's expression grew more and more shocked as he shouted, "Boss, what are you doing?" "Shut up," Noir, pretending to be wild, grabbed his collar and said, "Just do as I say." Yes. Fatty, extremely reluctant, ordered his men inside. Noir then went outside and arrived at the spacious casino hall. He casually took a glass of red wine from a waiter, cleared his throat, and said, "Everyone, quiet down. In this place, Crocodile's reputation as a Shichibukai was still very effective, and the guests stopped what they were doing and looked at him curiously. Shaking the red wine in a rather pretentious manner, Noir said, "Everyone here is my regular customer. I'm very grateful for your support." The guests looked puzzled, wondering why this man was suddenly so polite. "You're here to gamble, to have fun. Money is just a tool. It often limits our enjoyment of the game." As Noir rambled on, the guests became even more confused. What did he mean? Noir smiled slightly, raised his arm and called out. "Well, as the boss, I have decided today, I'll give you money to play with. Today, all expenses are on me, Crocodile." As soon as he said this, the whole place erupted. Boss is generous. As expected from a Shichibukai, a great man. He's right. Let's enjoy ourselves. The so-called gentlemen instantly turned into sycophants, cheering and praising Noir. Speaking generously while spending other people's money, Noir didn't feel the slightest pain. With a wave of his hand, his men immediately began to take bags of treasure from the vault and distribute them. The guests turned into ruffians by the wealth, started grabbing money with red eyes. With money in hand, why bother pretending to be decent? That would be just stupid. Noir watched the chaotic scene of guests grabbing berries with satisfaction. This was lively. Just then, the door was forcefully kicked open. The real Crocodile, who had hurried back, finally arrived. As he entered the door, he was almost blinded. Why did his guests look like that? Chapter 53 Noir, feeling smug, saw Crocodile storm in through the door and cursed inwardly. How did that guy get back so fast? The patrons froze at the sight of the familiar face, stopping their money-grabbing frenzy. The manager, Fatty, stared in disbelief at the two bosses in front of him. He was confused. Two almost identical crocodiles, but the manager quickly realized that something was wrong. The newly arrived boss had a golden hook on his hand, while the more handsome boss did not. Crocodile, in his anger, sneered and stared at Noir like a hungry wolf, asking, "What do you think you're doing?" Noir smiled lightly and replied, "Just helping you win some hearts." "Win your uncle's heart. If I run this casino for a few more years, I'll take over the country. I don't need your help." Veins bulged on Crocodile's forehead as he finally lost his temper and shouted hysterically, "Die!" Dust swirled in the hall, forming a blade of sand that wreaked havoc throughout the casino. Noir, still wearing Crocodile's face, flashed a gleam in his eyes and used the same technique. The two sand streams collided, and the luxurious Rain Dinner's casino was instantly reduced to rubble. A large chunk of Rain Dinner's roof was blown off by the powerful attack. Exposed to the sunlight were two crocodiles using the same powers. Crocodile stared at the imposter in shock and asked, "How can you use my ability?" "No, it's not just my power. You also have Mr. Two's and the Logia's ability reported earlier." Crocodile seemed to have discovered a great secret and said incredulously, "You can't possibly have that many devil fruit abilities. Is it the copy fruit? How could such an ability exist?" Noir rolled his eyes. That name again. Ace had also guessed that name before. Is there really such a devil fruit? Crocodile, seemingly convinced that he had found the truth, said sternly, "Don't think you can beat me with that ability. An imposter is just an imposter." Using the power of Sunasuna no Mi once again, the two of them moved their battle outside, surrounded by countless onlookers. The onlookers couldn't understand why there were two Lord Crocodiles fighting. In the desert, the advantage of the Sunasuna no Mi was maximized, making their battle seem almost holy. The two sandstorms clashed continuously, creating a terrifying scene in the desert. Soon, Noir began to fall behind. As for Sunasuna no Mi, Noir's copied ability was an imperfect version. Unless he killed Crocodile to get the full ability. In terms of development and potential, Noir couldn't compare to Crocodile, who had spent years honing his skills. But Noir's abilities were not limited to just one devil fruit. Seeing that the Sunasuna no Mi wasn't working, Noir immediately switched his abilities. The battlefield that had been covered in sand was suddenly engulfed in flames. Using the flames of Amaterasu as armor and the Maramara no Mi as a spear, the intense heat and destructive power tore through the sand. The flames and sand struggled fiercely, forcing Crocodile to retreat under the searing heat. The normal flames were manageable, but the black flames burning on Noir were a real threat. This fierce fire gave Crocodile the feeling that even the slightest contact would mean death. With the thrust of the flames, Noir closed the distance to Crocodile. As the distance shrank to hand combat, Crocodile countered with a sand blade and shouted, "Desert Spada." Covered in flames, Noir quickly switched abilities again. Activating the long unused bear fruit, he extended thick bear paws covered in black armament haki. The black flaming bear paws easily sliced through the Desert Spada's defenses, aiming for Crocodile's head. Armament haki? Crocodile, shocked, quickly turned into sand to avoid Noir's attack. Mimicry, flames, the bear's power, unknown black flames, and his own sand. Crocodile realized that this kid had many abilities. "What a powerful devil fruit," Crocodile said as he regained his strength. Despite his anger, he couldn't help but be impressed. But, Crocodile said confidently, "This is the desert, my domain." Endless sand poured out of the desert, forming a dark cloud over Rainbase. Noir, stunned by Crocodile's power, thought, "Is this devil fruit ability overdeveloped?" Luffy defeating that guy must have been truly extraordinary. Like an apocalypse with a wave of Crocodile's hand, the sand gathered into a point and surged toward Noir. Noir, unable to resist directly, quickly transformed into sand to escape. The massive impact sent smoke and sand flying, collapsing many buildings in Rainbase. Soon, the sand swirled and Noir reformed nearby. Looking at the enraged Crocodile, Noir sneered, "Relying on the Suna no mi alone is useless. We have the same abilities." Crocodile gritted his teeth in frustration. Not being skilled in hockey, he followed a similar path to Smoker, focusing on the development of Devil Fruit. Facing an opponent with the same ability and stronger hockey left him with few options. As Crocodile prepared to attack again, Noir lost interest in the battle. Noir had already accomplished his goals, beating Crocodile, successfully done. Gained the 2 Devil Fruit abilities he wanted from Alabasta. Soon, he would take more of Crocodile's money, marking this journey as a huge success. The final goal was to recruit Robin to his ship. Seizing the moment, Noir dashed back to the casino. Crocodile, confused by the deception, saw Noir turn into a sandstorm and fly out. Seeing the items Noir's sand was carrying, Crocodile's eyes bulged with rage as he shouted, "No!" Noir soared into the sky, and the sandstorm exploded around him. Countless gold and silver treasures, along with large berries, rained down from the sky. Basking in the rain of money, Noir excitedly shouted for all to hear in Rainbase. Crocodile is handing out money packets, 140 Chapter 54. After a massive sandstorm, the people of Rainbase opened their eyes in disbelief. What they saw was a rain of berries falling like raindrops from the sky. With Noir's scream as he scattered the money, the people of Rainbase went completely insane. Crocodile is handing out money. "Don't fight, don't push me." "Money? Give me the money, asshole, put down the berries in your hand." Crocodile felt like his heart was bleeding. The Rain Dinner Casino was a powerful money-making machine in his hands. The money earned by this one casino was comparable to the entire revenue of the Baroque works. Noir stood at the back of the chaotic crowd with 2 bags of berries on his back and grinned. "Well, I'll be going now, see Warlord." With a smug look, Noir collected the money, turned into sand and sank into the ground. Now even Crocodile couldn't tell where Noir had hidden himself. Crocodile roared like an enraged lion, his immense fury erupting as he shouted, "Noir!" Even though Crocodile had become the hero of the country, this so-called honor wasn't enough for the people to return the money they had taken. In addition, Noir used Crocodile's name to throw money around. As the farce began to die down, Crocodile, exhausted in body and mind, returned to his office. Looking at the devastated casino and the empty vault, all that remained in Crocodile's heart was rage and hatred. He forced himself to calm down and think carefully about Noir's motives. Noir was the one he had targeted, no doubt, but Noir's understanding of him was far beyond Crocodile's imagination. Coup d'etat and the Pluto, Noir seemed to know his plans from the beginning. But why come to the Rainbase and waste time if he knew this crucial information? Was it to distract him? This suggested that he had more advanced information than Crocodile. For example, the burial place of the text of Pluto's true history. But what use would that be? Unless he had an accomplice who could distract him while he checked the true history text. A flash of brilliance crossed Crocodile's mind, and he saw the woman's face in his mind. Nico Robin, the one he had sent away? If Noir could hear Crocodile's inner speculations, he would be munching on seeds and shouting, "Brilliant." Noir's reason for creating a scene in Rain Dinners was simple, to get some money. But Crocodile, through speculation, unexpectedly found out the real reason. This was something Noir hadn't expected. Crocodile paced the room, more and more convinced of the possibility. He picked up his private phone and called Robin. Brr brr brr. No one answered and Crocodile felt that he might be right. Nico, Robin and this Noir had definitely conspired beforehand. Crocodile regained his composure and rushed towards the capital, determined not to be wrong this time. As Crocodile flew away on the wind and sand, Noir slowly revealed his face in a Rainbase alley, muttering in confusion. "Damn, why is he going to the capital? I wonder if Robin took care of that." With the berries on his back, Noir turned and walked out of the alley. After a few steps, Noir hesitated for a moment. "Forget it, let's follow and see." Alabasta's capital, Alabasta. The normally heavily guarded palace grounds saw an unexpected visitor today. In the western royal cemetery of the palace, several skilled soldiers lay on the ground at the gate. Several arms suddenly grew from the shoulders and backs of the guards, quickly closing around the throats of several soldiers. Snap! a few crunching sounds of breaking bones, and the guards fell unconscious without a sound. Withdrawing her powers, Robin quietly pushed open the door and slipped into the graveyard. Underground Hall of Sacrifice. Robin pondered in her mind as she searched for a long time, finally finding the underground switch. She gently activated the mechanism, and with a dull sound, the heavy, seamless door slowly lifted. There was indeed an underground palace. Finding the entrance, Robin was overjoyed, feeling more confident about finding the true history text. She was not disappointed. After navigating through long, narrow tunnels, her vision opened up again. Inside the underground hall, the blue stone Robin had been searching for was right there. The true history text. Robin gently caressed the cold stone with her hand. The words engraved on it were transmitted to her brain by the touch, giving her an indescribable feeling of reassurance and excitement. Her beautiful eyes scanned the steel, the obscure ancient text appearing as plain text to her. When she finished reading all the records, Robin sighed deeply. As she and Crocodile had speculated, this steel did indeed have little historical record. It recorded the location of one of the 3 ancient weapons, the legendary warship Pluto. But that didn't make Robin greedy. Instead, after reading it, she truly felt a sense of loss. Robin's dream was actually very simple. She didn't want anything from the true history text. The Pluto, the ancient weapons, Robin didn't want any of them. She just wanted to know the whole story, nothing more. But Robin's dream had too many enemies in this world. Robin had a photographic memory. After recording Pluto's history on the steel, she left the tomb. Although she didn't get the crucial 100-year clue she wanted, seeing another part of the story satisfied Robin. Using the flower fruit stealth ability, Robin easily slipped out of the heavily guarded palace. The sky had darkened, and as Robin stepped onto the soft, fine sand, she felt both relaxed and apprehensive. Relaxed because she finally knew the hidden true history text of Alabasta. Worried because she knew the last piece of true history text she had confirmed. What next? This thing wasn't like cabbage, something you could just get whenever you wanted. As Robin pondered, Noir's face reappeared in her mind. Should she accept his invitation and follow him to look for it? Actually, it wasn't such a bad thing. At worst, she would betray him like before, if it was to her disadvantage. In any case, she was still the devil's child. Robin thought of this and laughed self-deprecatingly, but behind the smile was endless bitterness. Nico Robin, where are you going? A deep voice sounded, Robin's beautiful eyes trembled, and the fear in her heart was immediately awakened. Crocodile. Chapter 55. Robin turned around to see a towering figure standing before her. The golden hook on his hand exuded a purple poisonous mist, glinting ominously under the moonlight. Crocodile looked down at Robin from above, his eyes radiating obvious killing intent. What are you doing here? Crocodile demanded, his voice low and menacing. Suppressing her fear, Robin forced a calm smile and said, "Didn't the boss send me to carry out a task?" "Is that so?" Crocodile sneered. "Does the mission from Baroque Works require infiltrating the palace?" With that, Crocodile suddenly sprang into action, grabbing Robin by the throat and lifting her into the air with his right hand. Bloodshot eyes filled with rage, Crocodile roared, "Speak, what did you find in the palace? Is it the poneglyph?" Struggling to breathe, Robin's face turned blue as she choked out, "Yes." Crocodile, impatient and furious, shouted, "What does it record? Is it Pluton?" Robin's vision was blurring, but she firmly denied, "No, it only records Alabasta's history." "You're lying." Crocodile violently threw Robin to the ground, causing blood to trickle from the corner of her mouth. "How dare you deceive me?" Crocodile swung his golden hook, redirecting his anger at Noir onto Robin. As the hook came down, Robin quickly rolled to the side, but the sharp, poisonous tip still left a nasty wound on her pale waist. Blood gushed from the wound, and Robin clutched her waist, enduring the excruciating pain without making a sound. At this moment, Crocodile was clearly losing his mind. Today alone, he had gone through a series of drastic changes. First, a ridiculously strong newcomer discovered his secret. While he went out to catch the person Noir had stolen from his home. Upon returning to the base, that guy had even destroyed his source of income right in front of him. Now, before he could recover, he found that another secret had been stolen by Robin. What he had been pursuing all this time had been snatched away, and Crocodile was now in a rage, wanting to rip Robin's brain out. Then, he would see exactly what was written there. "Bastard, die." Finally, Crocodile could no longer restrain his murderous intent. Countless grains of sand gathered in his hand, forming a blade as he slashed towards Robin's head. Severely injured, Robin couldn't dodge and could only watch as the sand blade descended. As the despair of death loomed over her, Robin surprisingly felt a sense of relief. Having hidden all her life, she ultimately couldn't find the companions that Saul had spoken of. Robin gently closed her eyes, calmly awaiting the arrival of death. But just as she was about to resign to her fate, a loud crash snapped her back to reality. The sharp sand blade shattered into dust, and Crocodile was punched in the face, sending him flying. Standing before her was a man with cool, glowing, colorful sunglasses and a cigar in his mouth. His coat flapped in the wind, making a rustling sound, and his stern face was full of solemnity. Even the surrounding quiet seemed to change to the exclusive entrance BGM of Star Wars, Imperial March. Watch, V equals 8D Gelt 6XXQs. Robin opened her eyes wide in astonishment, while Crocodile, sitting on the ground, glared at the face he hated. Strangely, though, why was there music? Robin speechlessly watched Noir make his dramatic entrance and said, "What are you mumbling about?" Holding a prestigious system-branded cigar, Noir, who was humming the BGM, awkwardly scratched his head and said, "A hero rescuing a beauty needs a bit of atmosphere." Both Robin and Crocodile were left speechless. Seeing Robin's bleeding wound, Noir quickly became serious, crouching down to ask, "Are you okay?" A warm feeling passed through Robin's heart, and she shook her head. Noir nodded, stood up, and with a dangerous smile, said, "Miko-chan, step back, I want to have some fun with this guy." Robin knew her earlier feeling of gratitude was definitely misplaced. Crocodile wiped the blood from his nose and arrogantly asked, "What? Are you going to avenge her? Do you know what kind of person this woman is? She can betray me for her own goals, so she can betray you too." TCH. Noir couldn't be bothered to respond to Crocodile's attempts to sow discord. He raised his fists, preparing for battle, and looked at him intently. Seeing that his provocations had no effect, Crocodile decided not to waste any more words. Time to settle accounts. Having been toyed with like a monkey by these two, Crocodile couldn't bear it any longer. Be buried beneath the sands. Crocodile activated his desert powers, and a sea of sand surged, blotting out the sky. Scorching sand rushed in, trying to drain the moisture from Noir's body. Fearlessly, Noir charged into the center of the sandstorm, his left hand controlling sand and his right hand unleashing flames simultaneously. With both hands clenched, Noir tried to merge the two elements, soon creating a firestorm more intimidating than the sea of sand. The flame-infused sandstorm collided with the sand sea, but Crocodile used the blurred vision to swiftly approach, aiming his deadly hook at Noir. Noir dodged the hook, then drew his sword, slashing upwards, leaving a bloodstain on Crocodile's face. Damn Busashoku Haki, Crocodile, wary his power, quickly tried to touch Noir, hoping to turn him into a dried-up mummy. But black flames suddenly ignited on Noir's body, forcing the quick-reacting Crocodile to withdraw his hand, allowing Noir to seize the opportunity to strike and scatter his body. Crocodile skillfully used his abilities to evade attacks, while Noir found himself frustrated. Previously, he hadn't noticed this when sparring with Ace. But compared to Crocodile, who had trained with the Sunasuna no Mi since a young age, Noir's use of his fruit abilities was pathetic. Despite having many devil fruit abilities, Noir, like a busy harem king, couldn't excel at any single one, spreading his focus too thin. Noir felt troubled, while Crocodile grew irritated. This kid had too many abilities, like a hedgehog. Combined with his haki, Crocodile couldn't land a hit. As their battle reached a stalemate, Crocodile suddenly noticed Robin hiding in the distance. Immediately, Crocodile came up with a plan, evading Noir's attack, and pressed his hand to the ground, shouting, "Desert Spada." The sand dunes began to move, and hundreds of meters of ground instantly turned into quicksand, resembling a bizarre coffin, trying to drag everyone into the realm of death. As a sand devil fruit user, Noir showed no fear, but when he turned his head, he saw Robin, heavily injured and unable to move, panic-stricken as she was slowly being swallowed by the quicksand. Chapter 56. Robin sank deeper into the quicksand, and Noir, in a panic, had no choice but to abandon Crocodile and rush towards her. Just as most of her body was buried, Noir managed to reach out and grab Robin's hand. "Hold on tight, I'll pull you up," Noir shouted anxiously as he grabbed Robin. Crocodile sneered at the two and shot out, "Don't even think about it." A massive sand slash surged towards them, forcing Noir to release a burst of flames. The intense heat from his fiery fist scattered the sand, and in that moment, Noir lifted Robin out of the quicksand. After placing Robin safely away, Noir drew his sword and charged back at Crocodile. This time, he changed his strategy. He used his devil fruit abilities as a support and focused primarily on his swordsmanship and haki, pressing the attack with his blade. As expected, Noir's strategy of exploiting his strengths against Crocodile's weaknesses soon paid off. With insufficient haki and a weaker physique, Crocodile's devil fruit abilities were also countered by Noir's multiple powers. After several exchanges, Crocodile found himself with over a dozen wounds. Crocodile, now in a dire state, fought defensively and retreated, gritting his teeth in frustration. Transformed into a towering bear, Noir swung his flame-enhanced sword, with a blaze and a sandstorm surrounding him. Utilizing multiple abilities simultaneously, Noir appeared unstoppable, like a mysterious war god. Robin watched in awe from the sidelines. This defied all logic. How could one person possess so many devil fruit abilities simultaneously? Crocodile spat out a mouthful of blood, his eyes wary as he stared at Noir. This copied ability is truly troublesome. Crocodile cursed inwardly, although each ability was not as strong as his own when combined. How did it become so terrifying? As Crocodile's condition deteriorated, Noir only seemed to grow more energetic. Having not fully developed each ability meant that his stamina consumption was lower. So, even though Noir used multiple abilities at once, his monstrous stamina remained relatively unexhausted. After several more exchanges, Crocodile gained nothing and was instead kicked to the ground by Noir. His once immaculate attire was now tattered, and his stylish pompadour had several strands hanging down. From a successful businessman, Crocodile had been reduced to the image of a bankrupt, middle-aged man. Filled with excitement, Noir taunted, "Keep acting tough. Why aren't you fighting anymore?" Crocodile's face turned ashen as he began contemplating an escape plan. Since when did these newcomers become so terrifying? Not only were their devil fruit abilities monstrous, but their haki was also incredibly strong. "Don't we warlords have any dignity?" Just as Crocodile was about to swallow his pride and flee, shouts suddenly echoed from behind him. "Someone has infiltrated the palace. Over here, there's someone here." "Is Sir Crocodile here too? Who's that? How did they beat Sir Crocodile so badly?" Crocodile couldn't hold back and spat out a mouthful of old blood. "If you can't speak, just shut up." Noir frowned at the approaching crowd, quickly realizing they were from the palace. Suddenly, Noir felt a weight on his shoulder and turned to see Robin, pale, leaning against him. "That's the palace's army. They must have discovered my infiltration. Don't get tangled with them." Robin spoke intermittently before collapsing into Noir's arms, unconscious. Noir was startled, looking down at Robin's wound, where blood had already stained the area red. Glaring at Crocodile, then at the rapidly approaching palace soldiers, Noir hurriedly picked up Robin and fled into the distance. By the time Noir had disappeared, the royal army of Alabasta finally arrived. Crocodile's true motives had not yet been revealed, so the people of Alabasta still regarded the warlord with some respect. Even if they didn't like this pirate, most kept their opinions to themselves without showing open hostility. The palace troops were led by the deputy commander of the royal guard, one of Alabasta's strongest warriors, Jackal, Chaka. Chaka, personally, didn't like Crocodile very much. But since Crocodile was currently a hero of the kingdom, he couldn't say anything openly. Chaka approached Crocodile and asked curiously, "Mr. Crocodile, who exactly was the enemy?" Crocodile, kneeling on one knee and breathing heavily, replied sharply, "Just some thieves invading the kingdom. I chased them away, but they escaped too quickly to catch up." Crocodile boasted without hesitation. Chaka, looking at his disheveled state, didn't know what to say. "Your injuries?" Chaka hesitated, glancing at Crocodile. Crocodile slicked back his hair and said, "It's nothing, don't worry." He looked up in the direction Noir had fled, a sinister smile forming on his face. Under the moonlight, the tip of his golden hook gleamed with a purple light, exuding a dangerous aura. "Noir, you better run faster with her, don't die on the way." After settling Crocodile, Chaka led his soldiers in a brief pursuit of Noir but found nothing. Left with no choice, Chaka returned to the palace with his men. Just as he was about to leave the palace grounds, a small figure ran out. "Chaka, what happened?" A young girl with a smooth blue ponytail and bright, curious eyes looked at Chaka. Chaka quickly knelt down, respectfully saying, "Princess Vivi, a group of thieves infiltrated the palace but have already fled." "Really?" Vivi furrowed her pretty brows and then asked, "Have you found out what I asked you to investigate?" Chaka nodded. The Baroque Works is indeed a criminal organization, but there's no evidence linking them to our kingdom's strange incidents. Vivi pondered, "If that's the case, I have an idea." Chaka asked curiously, "What is it?" Princess Vivi smiled mischievously, "I will go undercover. I've been watching them for a long time. If I can infiltrate the organization, I'm sure I can find some clues." Chaka was taken aback and quickly tried to dissuade her. "You mustn't, princess. That organization is too mysterious, and your noble status." Princess Vivi shook her head, not listening to him, and ran off to seek her father's permission. Chaka, with a pained expression, quickly followed her. Under the moonlit night, many significant events quietly unfolded in the vast desert of Alabasta. 140 Chapter 57. The sky gradually brightened as the disturbances of the night settled into calm. Princess Vivi earnestly requested her father to agree to her plan, while Crocodile, having been beaten up, resumed plotting his schemes. At the same time, he was constantly searching for Noir's whereabouts, planning his revenge. However, at this moment, Noir was leisurely sailing away from the borders of Alabasta. Inside the ship's cabin, a pair of individuals were sweating profusely, hard at work. Noir sat on the bed, sweat dripping from his forehead, panting heavily. He asked in a deep voice, "How do you feel?" Robin, lying on the bed, bit her lower lip gently, her face flushed as she softly replied, "I'm okay." "Turn over. It feels uncomfortable, it'll be over soon." After a while, Robin let out a muffled groan, and Noir exhaled deeply. Wiping the sweat off, Noir held a pair of tweezers, saying, "That bastard's golden hook is really something. It even left fragments in the wound." As he rebandaged the bleeding wound, Robin's complexion slowly returned to normal. She said, "Crocodile's methods are always like that. The golden hook likely has poison on it." Having spent the entire night tending to Robin's wounds, a fatigued Noir collapsed onto the bed, saying weakly, "That guy is truly disgusting." Robin comfortingly patted his head and smiled. "I had anticipated this before, so although I don't have an antidote, I made an inhibitor." Noir closed his eyes and thought for a while before saying, "We can't just let this poison linger. We need to find a doctor." "Right, Chopper's hometown should be nearby." Noir sat up and looked at Robin, asking, "Do you know where Drum Island is?" Robin thought for a moment and said, "A famous medical country. I read about it in a sailing log, but I only know roughly where it is." "That's good enough." Robin had used her toxin inhibitor, so the situation wasn't extremely urgent. "Let's head to Drum Island." Noir got excited for a moment and suddenly remembered something. He asked, "So, would you like to become my crewmate?" Why did that sound like a marriage proposal? Robin propped her hands on the bed and, with an elegant smile, said, "Shouldn't I, a wanted criminal, be asking if I can join your crew?" A wanted criminal? Oh, Noir had almost forgotten if Robin hadn't mentioned it. With a generous heart, Noir said, "It's fine. I'm not exactly a good person either." Robin shook her head helplessly and extended her delicate hand, saying, "Then please take care of me, Captain." Noir grabbed her small hand and laughed, of course. Thus, after over 50 chapters of trials, Noir finally found his first companion. And it was Robin from the protagonist group that he had intercepted. Noir was very satisfied. Having a girl on board indeed made life much more refined. For one, at least Noir's pigsty was now taken care of. Even the other rooms were cleaned, and Noir's clothes were washed. This made Noir feel quite embarrassed, feeling like a useless person for the first time. Days passed, and the ship had long left Alabasta's territory. The environment around them also underwent a drastic change, from the scorching heat that could cook a person to the cold, icy air. As they ventured deeper into the Winter Island region, the sky even started to snow heavily, covering the ship and the horizon in a blanket of white. In this freezing weather, Noir and Robin huddled in the cabin, unwilling to come out. In the warm room, Noir was tugging at his hair, struggling over the chessboard in front of him. Across from him, Robin seemed to be reading a book diligently. In reality, a small hand formed by her Hana no Mi ability was on the table, moving the chess pieces. Noir had created a set of Gomoku pieces because he didn't know how to play Go, so he dragged Robin to play this instead. But who would have thought? Noir hadn't won a single game in these past few days. Robin truly exemplified what it meant to beat someone blindfolded. The small hand on the table placed a piece, and Noir's eyes widened in disbelief. "Damn it, lost again." With a puff, the arm turned into petals and disappeared. Robin smiled at him and said, "You lost again, 121 losses now." Noir slumped over the table in frustration, saying, "It shouldn't be. I thought I was playing well." Robin, like an older sister teasing her little brother, said, "Your thoughts are too simple. I can see through every move." Noir snorted defiantly. Back in Belmere's house, he was at least the third best at playing chess. Only second to Belmere and Najiko. If Nami dared to win, she would get a good beating. Unable to beat Robin in Gomoku, Noir planned to create other entertainment tools. He already had a rough idea, to make a board game in the world of One Piece. The systems and skill judgments could be based on board games from his previous life. With such complicated rules set by himself, would he still lose to Robin? Noir started chuckling to himself, lost in thought. Robin gave him a disdainful glance and quietly moved her seat a bit further away. Realizing he had scared Robin away, Noir blushed, wiped the drool from his mouth, and came back to his senses. Speaking of which, he hadn't checked Robin's talents yet. Noir focused his gaze on Robin, and lines of information unfolded in his mind. Name: Robin Devil Child. Red quality: naturally ominous, bringing misfortune to anyone or anything associated with her. However, if accompanied by someone with great fortune, the side effects disappear, and her charm multiplies, gaining affinity and charisma, leading to smooth sailing. Ohara Scholar. Purple quality, embodying all the knowledge of Ohara. Naturally proficient in history with a top-level learning and memory capacity for any linguistic subjects. Intelligence increases with combat. Devil Host. Hana. Blue quality, allowing any part of her body to bloom like flowers on any tangible object. Abandoned by the sea. Purple quality, cursed by the sea along with the devil's power. This curse causes weakness upon contact with seawater, rendering her unable to use abilities actively. Robin's talents were impressive and certainly matched her achievements. But the ability to read ancient texts wasn't considered a talent, which disappointed Noir a bit. The system's talent descriptions were getting more mystical, naturally ominous, great fortune companion. Then again, he should be considered someone with great fortune, right? Noir pondered, and since he could traverse worlds, he should indeed count as having great fortune, right? 140 Chapter 58 Noir thought for a long time but couldn't recall any misfortune he had encountered after meeting Robin. He figured he must be a favorite of fate after all. Not seeing any talent related to ancient texts, Noir didn't press the matter. Maybe that skill wasn't as useful, but since Robin was already on the ship, it didn't matter. However, Noir was very tempted by the Ohara Scholar talent. Even though it was only of purple quality, it granted top-tier learning and memory capacity for any linguistic subject. That was his dream in his previous life. If he had that talent back then, he wouldn't have struggled to memorize even a few poems. Moreover, in battle, intelligence would increase with the situation, an excellent ability. After all, while Noir was handsome, charming, and dashing, his intelligence was a bit lacking. Previously, the system upgrade gave him 3 replication cards, and Robin later provided another one. After using 2 for imitating and the Suna no Mi, he had 2 left. If he used them on Robin, there would only be 1 left. Noir gritted his teeth and decided to go for it. After all, they could get another replication card when they met Chopper on Drum Island. Noir quietly approached Robin from behind and placed the replication card on her back. Robin turned her head to look at him, and Noir awkwardly smiled. There was a mosquito. Looking at the snowy scene outside the window, Robin wondered, how could there be mosquitoes in this cold weather? Successfully replicating the Ohara Scholar talent, Noir's mind felt incredibly clear. Countless texts from his previous life appeared vividly in his mind like a movie. Photographic memory and the ability to recall past knowledge, this brainpower was impressive. Noir nodded in satisfaction. With the system's recent upgrade to 10 talent slots, all were now filled. His golden talent was Sovereign's Charisma. Red talents included Climate Supersensory, Mera no Mi, and Suna no Mi. Purple talents were Otherworld Visitor, Dominator's Swordsmanship, and Ohara Scholar. Blue talents were Kuma no Mi and Imitation Fruit. There was also an annoyingly inferior whiteboard talent, focused singularly. In addition to these, Noir had his own training in Fishman Karate, Hidden Mitsurugi Ryu, and Amaterasu. Although talent quality didn't necessarily reflect a person's combat power, it did indicate the benefits and special effects in specific areas. For example, the purple quality Dominator's swordsmanship came from Yonko Shanks. But who would dare say Shanks' swordsmanship was weak? However, the talent focused singularly derived from Genzo. That one had to go. If the system hadn't upgraded, and he didn't have universal replication cards, who would bother with Genzo? He would have copied Shanks' entire set of talents right away. Noir sorted through all his belongings, including some miscellaneous items. Aside from premium cigars, the color-changing sunglasses were also great for showing off. As Noir was counting his treasures, Robin suddenly spoke, "I can see the island." Noir leaned against the window and saw a large island covered in snow with towering peaks resembling chimneys, making for a spectacular sight. Land ho! Noir donned a large cotton coat and was the first to rush out. Robin, however, was a bit embarrassed. When she fled, she only had an archaeological toolkit bag on her back. Her clothes had also been damaged in battle. As a result, since boarding the ship, she had been wearing Noir's clothes. Anyone would understand the fit of men's clothes on Robin. The loose and ill-fitting clothes often left her shoulders exposed, revealing her enticing collarbones, and her lively chest seemed trapped. Noir was tempted several times to lend a helping hand. But before he could act, Robin's gaze would deter him. He was afraid this woman might crush him. Robin tightened the clothes around her and draped a thick coat over herself before following Noir outside. After the ship docked, Noir supported Robin as they walked into the island. Although the toxin was not lethal under the inhibitor's effect, it had made Robin very weak. They hadn't walked far when they encountered a large group of people. These people, armed with guns, immediately surrounded them upon seeing intruders. By royal decree, entering the Drum Kingdom requires a 500,000 belly entry fee. The leading soldier aimed his gun at the two and shouted loudly. However, neither of them paid him any mind, their pace unwavering. "You dare!" The enraged soldier's leader tried to shout, but before he could finish, a surge of energy swept over them. The soldiers collapsed under the influence of Noir's conqueror's haki. "So much nonsense," Noir scoffed. Robin looked at the fallen soldiers in confusion and asked, "Why does a medical kingdom like Drum Kingdom have such a ridiculous entry fee?" Noir, knowing the reason, said disdainfully, "They have a moronic cane." Robin nodded without further questioning, and the two walked unimpeded to a village. On the way, a shifty-eyed fellow spotted them and hurriedly reported to the cane. In the village, Noir started asking about doctors. As expected, the foolish king had implemented a law to capture all doctors, leaving no civilian doctors in the entire country. Given the timeline, Dr. Hiralik was probably already dead. A villager leading them sighed and said, "There is one doctor left, Dr. Kureha. She has a peculiar personality, so we call her the witch. She opposes the king's policies and has not been captured. Sometimes she secretly treats people. If you're looking for a doctor, she's the last one left, but I don't know when she will show up." Noir nodded. Dr. Kureha was like a mother to Chopper, so they needed to find her first to meet Chopper. But Noir wasn't planning to wait here idly. King Wapol had kept the top 20 doctors exclusively for himself. Taking them would solve the problem. "King, it's those two, speak of the devil." As Noir was thinking about them, a commotion erupted at the entrance. Noir stepped out of the villager's house and looked expressionlessly at the newcomers. The leading figure, with a big head, an iron jaw, and foolish features, was clearly Drum Kingdom's King Wapol. Wapol, picking his nose, disdainfully stared at Noir and asked, "Who gave you the guts to break the law and not pay?" Chapter 59. Noir stared at Wapol, his eyes openly releasing a killing intent. If Noir had to name the person he disliked most in the pirate world, Wapol would undoubtedly be near the top of the list. In the pirate world, most villains aren't that detestable. They all have their unique charm and shining points. For example, Crocodile, Doflamingo, and even Arlong have their own ideals and ambitions. But Wapol in front of him was nothing but a pest. He governed and made laws as if it were a game, harming loyal subordinates and Hiralik, who were committed to saving the country. As a ruler of a medical kingdom, he foolishly believed that the kingdom's medical prowess was solely his credit, thinking that citizens didn't deserve the help of doctors. So, he selfishly eradicated doctors, leaving only a few for his own use, not caring whether the people lived or died. Wapol grinned and said, "Kid, why aren't you talking? Don't you know that not answering the king is against the law?" His soldiers, emboldened by Wapol's presence, pointed their guns at Noir, cursing and demanding an apology from him. The villagers, angry but frightened by the weapons, dared not intervene. Wapol dismounted from his hippo, his iron jaw snapping open to bite a chunk out of a house wall. Crunch. Rip. He chewed on the wooden material, speaking through a mouthful, "Boy, are you here to seek medical help? Good timing, beg me, and I might lend you my 20 doctors." Noir sneered, drew his sword, and leapt towards Wapol without a word. A flash of the blade, and Wapol felt a chilling sensation in his chest, followed by a gush of blood. Wapol collapsed, causing panic among his guards. The 20 doctors rushed to his side, administering medical aid. To Noir's surprise, Wapol was revived almost instantly. Noir stood stunned for a few seconds, thinking, is this really how this world works? Such a severe injury treated and recovered from in moments? Wapol, having narrowly escaped death, yelled furiously, "Damn you! You dared to ambush me before I said we could start." Noir, with his sword on his shoulder, raised an eyebrow and asked, "So, can we start now?" Wapol quickly used his Baku no Mi powers, manifesting a cannon from his belly. Satisfied, he said, "Yes, now we start, kid, I am." Before he could finish, a beautiful green sword light slashed across him, again spraying blood. Wapol fell once more, and Noir impatiently sheathed his sword, saying, "If you want to fight, then fight. Why talk so much?" The unconscious Wapol was surrounded by doctors again. This cycle repeated several times, and Wapol kept standing up. Noir watched him with amusement. "Ha, I'm not going to finish you off. I'll just let you keep hovering on the brink of death." Realizing that Noir could easily kill him, Wapol finally shouted in terror, "Retreat, retreat now." His soldiers, in a panic, pushed and shoved each other, dragging Wapol away. But Noir wasn't done playing and wouldn't let them escape. With his long legs, he followed them at a leisurely pace. Seeing Noir chasing the entire army alone, the villagers finally came out of their homes, shocked. Robin, at the window, watched Noir with exasperation. Did he forget about her? Just then, the door was kicked open, and Robin, ever cautious, readied her abilities. At the door stood a stylishly dressed elderly lady and a reindeer. The kind villager explained to the lady, "Dr. Kureha, this is the patient I told you about. She and her companion came seeking medical help." Dr. Kureha pushed her sunglasses up and scrutinized Robin, saying, "She does seem deeply poisoned, Chopper." The reindeer handed Kureha a bag, prompting Robin to ask hesitantly, "Are you a doctor?" Kureha, looking cool in her jacket, replied, "Of course, but my fees are high. By the way, where's your companion?" Before Robin could answer, the villager excitedly said, "This lady's partner is amazing. He defeated Wapol and his army of doctors. He's now chasing after them alone." Chopper's furry body trembled slightly, and Kureha, surprised, said, "Alone? Defeated Wapol's protected army?" The villager nodded vigorously. He crippled that tyrant with just 2 strikes. Incredible. Kureha, preparing herbs, remarked, "Indeed, impressive." At that moment, Chopper tugged on her pants, and Kureha, looking down, said, "Want to go see him? Go ahead, see what kind of person he is." Chopper nodded and trotted off, following the scent. As Kureha began treating Robin, Robin asked curiously, "Is he your pet?" Kureha, usually blunt, seemed nostalgic and replied, "No, he's my child." Meanwhile, Noir, unaware that Robin was getting medical help, continued to toy with Wapol. They say villains talk too much and get themselves killed. But who kills the talkative villain? The protagonist. Noir might be a villain, but Wapol clearly wasn't the protagonist. Watching his soldiers get cut down by the pursuing Noir, Wapol cursed his legs for not being faster. Noir easily caught up, delivering a powerful elbow to Wapol's iron jaw. Wapol rolled several times in the snow, trying to get up as his 20 doctors trembled nearby. Noir stepped on the struggling Wapol, with Chopper secretly watching from behind a tree. Placing his sword by Wapol's neck, Noir said coldly, "A pest like you deserves to die." In the original story, Luffy merely sent him flying, allowing him to rise again, become wealthy, marry, regain power, and continue harming another country. Truly, a pest that wouldn't die. But Noir wasn't Luffy, he wouldn't just send someone flying. He raised his sword and swung it gracefully. Without resistance, the blade sliced through Wapol's neck. His head fell into the pristine snow, lifeless. Chapter 60. Wapol had only come out to flaunt his power as usual, but unexpectedly, he was killed by an outsider. Wapol, who died with unfulfilled desires, bled onto the snow, and Chopper, hiding behind a tree, was so frightened that all his fur stood on end. In his reindeer form, he suddenly transformed into his hybrid form. The now smaller Chopper quietly hid behind the tree, observing the scene. Noir wiped his blade and easily noticed the little creature hiding over there. He didn't need Hawkeye to sense this cutie. It was like Chopper wasn't hiding at all, with his furry body exposed to the air, as if he was afraid Noir wouldn't see him. Most people hide their bodies behind cover, peeking out with their eyes. But Chopper was different. He hid one eye while exposing most of his body. This unique style could only belong to Chopper. Noir greeted Chopper amicably, saying, "Hey, little reindeer, what are you doing there?" "Who?" Chopper's expression turned to one of terror. "How did he notice me with my perfect hiding?" Noir slowly approached Chopper, who was clearly scared by the sight of his bloodstained blade and kept retreating. "Don't be afraid. I know you can talk," Noir said in a gentle tone, gesturing for him to come closer. Chopper tilted his head, puzzled. "How do you know?" Noir chuckled. "I guessed." He then extended his hand and politely introduced himself. "My name is Noir. I'm here on this island seeking medical help." Chopper, hesitantly, touched Noir's outstretched hand with his paw and said, "I'm Chopper. Your companion is already being treated by Dr. Kureha." "Really?" Noir said with delight. "In that case, Dr. 20 and the others won't be needed." Grateful, Noir patted Chopper's head with the pink hat and said, "Thank you, little guy." Feeling the weight on his head, Chopper couldn't help but ask, "You don't hate me?" Noir was taken aback. "Hate you? Why?" Chopper lowered his head, recalling painful memories, and said in a muffled voice, "Because I have a blue nose and can talk like a human." Noir remembered that Chopper was not accepted by his herd due to his unique blue nose. After eating a devil fruit, he could talk like a human and transform, but then he was rejected by humans. Noir laughed heartily and gently patted Chopper's back. "You're just a reindeer who ate a devil fruit. You're not a monster. There are many little guys like you on the Grand Line." In the eyes of ignorant villagers, Chopper might seem like a monster, but in the vast sea, anyone knowledgeable wouldn't care about Chopper's race or traits. Chopper's eyes sparkled, filled with hope, and he eagerly asked, "Really?" Noir nodded, and Chopper, with his chubby face, excitedly muttered to himself, "I'm not a monster, there are others like me." A notification sounded in Noir's mind. "You have befriended a key character. Reward: Universal Talent Copy Card 1, Healing Skill 1. Noir understood that as long as a character from the story slightly liked him and spoke with him, it counted as befriending. This meant Chopper had already let down his basic guard. But what was this healing skill? He hadn't heard of it before. Was it something like a healing spell? If Chopper, as a doctor, gave Noir an auxiliary healing skill, he wouldn't be disappointed. At least the system didn't heartlessly send him a box of cotton candy. System. Noir held back the excited Chopper and used the system to check his talents. Name: Chopper. Adorable growth. Purple quality. As a child, due to his race, he was rejected by both sides. But as he grows, his affinity will gradually increase until he is loved by all races. Dream of a panacea. Purple quality. Determined to become a doctor who creates a universal medicine, his learning efficiency and medical skills is increased. Surgery success rate is significantly improved, and the effectiveness of his medicines is enhanced. Devil host. Human fruit. Blue quality. After eating the zone-type devil fruit, human fruit, he can transform into a human. Ocean's Curse, purple quality. While gaining the power of a devil, he also received the curse of the devil. This curse is hated by the sea. When encountering seawater, he becomes powerless and cannot use his abilities. Chopper's talents were quite standard, with most of his points invested in cuteness and medical skills. However, with his self-developed Rumble Ball, Chopper could alter the wavelength of his devil fruit powers, unlocking stronger forms. After all, Chopper was known for fighting billion-dollar battles while being paid in cotton candy. Noir beckoned to Chopper, saying, "Let's go, it's already settled." Chopper hesitated, then nodded, but glanced back at Wapol's corpse. Noir watched him and didn't rush, waiting patiently. He was probably thinking of Dr. Hiralik, who was like a father to him. On the snowy island, Robin frowned as she slowly drank the bitter medicine. Kureha sat with her legs crossed, guzzling from a bottle, then exhaled contentedly, saying, "The inhibitor was well developed. Given a bit more time, you could have developed the antidote yourself." Robin finished the bitter medicine and said, "Thank you, doctor." Kureha waved her hand. At that moment, Noir returned with Chopper. Chopper's little hooves made cute sounds as he trotted to Kureha and hugged her leg, saying, "Dr. Kureha, Wapol is dead." "Dead?" Kureha's eyes widened. She looked at Noir and asked, "You killed a king?" Noir shrugged. Killing him wasn't a big deal. This trash wanted to make a comeback in the future? Dream on. He looked at Robin, who gave him a reassuring look, and Noir understood. Kureha snapped out of her shock and laughed heartily. The youth these days are really something. Looking at Kureha, Noir suddenly had a thought and couldn't help but ask, "Dr. Kureha, can you join my crew?" Kureha rolled her eyes and said, "You young people, always thinking such things." Noir was taken aback. What's wrong with that idea? Did this old lady mishear something? Joining the crew, not, Chapter 61. After a thorough explanation, Kureha finally refused Noir's invitation to team up and go on an adventure. Not only did she not want to go on an adventure, but she also couldn't bring herself to leave Chopper behind. Noir didn't want to invite Chopper because he felt Chopper was too young. Although Chopper had remarkable medical talents, Noir felt he would be exploiting child labor. Noir's plan was to gather strong crew members instead of developing slowly like Luffy's crew. He wanted to recruit powerful individuals first, and then find some subordinates for various tasks. Otherwise, it would be too difficult for Noir to juggle the roles of captain, navigator, cook, and fighter all by himself. After healing Robin's hidden illness, Noir went to the village to buy food and supplies for the ship. Robin, guided by Kureha, also bought a lot of fashionable clothes. Although he had been at sea for less than a year, Noir had spent almost all of the bounty money he had saved up over several years. He even stole all of Nami's secret stash before setting sail. Fortunately, his good brother Crocodile generously sponsored him. Otherwise, Noir would be eating dirt by now, especially considering his current extravagant spending habits. After the supplies were loaded onto the ship, many villagers came to see them off. Surprisingly, the death of a king did not cause panic or sadness among the people. In fact, they wanted to set off fireworks, slaughter a pig, and celebrate the occasion. Chopper also came to see them off on the shore. When no one was paying attention, Noir gently patted Chopper on the head and said, "I'm going, little Chopper. You should go out to sea and see the world sometime." Chopper nodded vigorously and said with determination, "I will find my companions and become the kind of pirate Dr. Hiralik talked about." Noir smiled wryly. The kind of pirate Hiralik mentioned was not what the world generally understood a pirate to be. Luffy, who cherished freedom and feared no authority, was the kind of pirate Hiralik and Chopper admired. But in the conventional sense, Blackbeard would be considered the quintessential pirate, greedy, ruthless, patient, and resilient, with immense ambition and the gambler's heart shared by most notorious outlaws. Other great pirates, even Whitebeard, who wanted sons, or Big Mom, who wanted a family, didn't quite fit the public image of a pirate. Noir did not explain this to young Chopper. It was something Chopper would have to understand on his own in the future. After saying goodbye to Drum Island, Noir and Robin set off again to continue their cute duo adventure. Despite the occasional awkwardness of being alone with a beautiful woman, Noir was quite happy with the arrangement. After the log pose, Noir's next destination was Skypia. However, figuring out how to get to Skypia was a challenge. Noir doubted that his ship could survive the knock-up stream that Luffy's crew was using. The Going Merry was heavily damaged by the knock-up stream, and Noir's old ship would be even worse without a ship spirit. Besides, the knock-up stream was not a regular occurrence. Noir had no choice but to find another way in, as characters like Enel and Uroge managed to reach Skypia without using the knock-up stream. His ship was also due for a replacement. Noir stomped on the deck, the wooden planks creaking under his weight. His current ship, originally modified from Arlong's, had accompanied him on his hunter's journey for many years. But with the battles and voyages ahead, this ship wouldn't be able to keep up with Noir's growing power. Robin, noticing the damaged deck, said, "You should replace the ship." This one hasn't been maintained in a long time. Noir rubbed his chin and said, "No hurry. I'll look for a new ship on the next island. For now, I'll find some materials to repair it." There was another treasure on Skypia besides the so-called god, the Arc Maxim. Noir had coveted this flying ship for a long time. Flying ships were rare in the pirate world. As the weather warmed, the snow on the ship melted. Robin, who had acquired many stylish outfits from the trendy old lady Coreja, now wore a short-sleeved outfit. It had to be said that Robin's figure was exceptional. Her tight-fitting white shirt accentuated her curves, and her high-waisted denim shorts accentuated her slim waist and long legs. Noir could confidently say that he could watch Robin change outfits all year long. But Noir was frustrated. With all his strength and the charm of an otherworlder visitor, why hadn't Robin shown any interest? Wasn't the halo supposed to attract female protagonists? Noir, feeling depressed, shook his head. Robin lay on the deck, reading a book in the sun. Noir stole a few more glances, enjoying the view, then picked up some materials to repair the deck. Noticing that the persistent gaze was finally lifting, Robin let out a subtle sigh of relief. She lowered her previously tense chest and relaxed her tightly clasped hands, which were damp with sweat. Robin absent-mindedly turned a page in her book, her gaze lingering on Noir, who was busy with repairs. Her usually calm expression showed a hint of restlessness. Robin's lips parted slightly, but she couldn't find the words. After a while, a faint voice seemed to float in the air. "Idiot!" Noir, busy with his repairs, cocked his head in confusion. Did he hear something? The tone seemed to carry a hint of disappointment. Unaware, Noir continued his work, while Robin quietly read her book. The scene remained harmonious. Meanwhile, a lone boat drifted across the vast ocean, gradually approaching Noir's ship. The small but finely crafted boat, mostly black with a white cross seat and sail, was unmistakable. On the seat was a man wearing a black top hat, a wine-red patterned shirt, and a black coat. Even more striking were his sharp, hawk-like golden eyes. Hawkeye raised his head and saw the large ship approaching. No pirate flag, just an ordinary merchant ship. Hawkeye shook his head, losing interest, and closed his eyes. As the two ships passed each other, Noir, busy with his repairs, glanced over and spotted Hawkeye. Noir froze, then exclaimed with joy, "Hey, Hawkeye, Chapter 62. Hawkeye Mahawk looked up in confusion at Noir, who was shouting from his ship. "Are we familiar?" he thought. However, when he saw the sword at Noir's waist, Mahawk understood a bit. "A swordsman, another guy who dreams of challenging me for glory," he mused, feeling a sense of disinterest at the sight of the young swordsman. Mahawk had just returned from the New World, where he had sought a spar with an old rival. To his frustration, his rival, a fellow swordsman, had lost an arm and claimed to have betted on the new era. Not wanting to take advantage of his old friend, Mahawk refrained from fighting him, which left him feeling quite itchy for a good match. "Wait a moment. I want to challenge you." Noir stood on his ship, looking at Mahawk. Instantly, the system detected all of Mahawk's information. Name: Mahawk, world's greatest swordsman. Golden talent: swordsmanship talent that crushes peers, increases the momentum of sword techniques, enhances destructive power, adds 20% penetration when fighting any swordsman, and halves the time required to perform sword techniques. Supreme sword heart: golden talent. Possesses a pure heart in pursuit of supreme swordsmanship. Can copy any level of strong swordsman's techniques through simple observation. Sword energy contains special power. The more wounds inflicted by the sword energy, the higher the damage. Cold exterior, warm interior. Blue quality. Eccentric personality. The longer the time spent together, the faster the increase in the other party's favorability. The world's greatest swordsman, Hawkeye Mahawk. When Noir saw the two golden talents, he was almost driven crazy with greed. One of his biggest goals in practicing swordsmanship and going to sea was to copy Mahawk's talents. Meeting Mahawk today was incredibly fortunate. Seeing those talents, they were indeed well deserved. "I want both of those golden talents," Noir thought. As for that blue talent, what was that about? Was Hawkeye actually a warm-hearted person? Noir wondered, looking at Mahawk. It didn't seem that way. Despite Noir's enthusiasm and eagerness, Mahawk didn't seem very interested. He frowned, his hawk-like eyes fixed on Noir, and said, "A young lad like you wants to step on me to gain fame?" Noir, stepping on the railing and looking at Mahawk like a rare treasure, said, "Gaining fame doesn't matter. I just want to learn your swordsmanship." Well, to learn his talents, actually. Mahawk, absent-mindedly observing Noir, thought that if not for the boy's politeness, he would have already sliced the ship in half. Since he was idle, Mahawk stood up without drawing his sword and said indifferently, "Go ahead, show me your spirit." Damn, he's so arrogant, Noir thought, almost blinded by Mahawk's aura. As fellow Shichibukai, why did Mahawk's aura seem so much higher than Crocodile's? Standing on his ship, Noir collected himself, placing his hand on the hilt of his sword. Robin, holding her book, stepped back a few paces, looking at Noir with concern. After a brief charge, Noir drew his sword and unleashed a fierce blue-silver sword energy, cutting through the sea waves towards Mihawk. Mihawk's golden eyes narrowed sharply. With foresight, he slightly shifted his body, and the sword energy brushed past him, flying into the sea, causing a powerful impact that created a vortex. Seeing the trace left by Noir's sword energy, Mihawk's calm heart finally stirred slightly. Impressive swordsmanship, and with Hawkeye as well. This could be interesting, he thought. Becoming interested, Mihawk pointed to the side and said, I just came from there. There's a deserted island. Let's fight there. Noir, craving those talents, laughed and agreed, sure. They sailed to the deserted island, with Robin staying on the shore. She couldn't understand why these men always suddenly started fighting. And after either winning or losing, they would get so excited. Noir and Mihawk stood on the ground, ready. Noir drew his sword, and Mihawk lifted his supreme-grade sword from his back. Looking at Mihawk's black sword Yuru and then at his own good sword, Noir gasped, falling silent. However, Mihawk did not hold back due to the difference in their weapons. Holding Yuru with one hand, he moved like a phantom, enveloped in dark green sword light. Noir used armament Hawkeye to counter the attack. Although Yuru was huge, in Mihawk's hands, it moved with the agility of a dagger, creating a seamless and relentless assault. Noir was immediately put on the defensive, barely able to block the attacks. Facing the world's greatest swordsman at full power, he quickly found himself in trouble. He didn't want to use his devil fruit abilities as this was a great opportunity to refine his swordsmanship, his most glaring shortcoming. Although he couldn't match Mihawk's swordsmanship or Crocodile's devil fruit mastery, he could hold his own against any Shichibukai level opponent by combining the two. With great talents, one had to use and train them properly, and Noir didn't want to waste his. As they fought fiercely, Mihawk seemed to intentionally refrain from using killing moves, almost as if he was feeding moves to Noir. Amid the clashing of swords, Noir's mind sank into the essence of the two powerful blades. He could feel their pride and fighting spirit. Gradually, his mind cleared, and his eyes lit up. He swiftly drew his sword, shouting, "Nine-headed dragon flash." The incredibly fast sword light left afterimages in the air. Mihawk's eyes sharpened, his sword light enveloping his body as he countered with equally fast strikes. 9 swords struck from different directions at high speed, Mihawk's successive counters filled with unseen dangers. Breathing heavily, Noir launched another 9-headed dragon flash with great effort. Mihawk's golden hawk eyes seemed to pierce everything, swiftly countering with the same 9-headed dragon flash. Amidst the violent clash of sword energies, the small deserted island became a mess. The two fighters stopped, with Noir adjusting his chaotic breathing and watching Mihawk intently. The world's greatest swordsman. Talent gave Mihawk immense striking power against swordsmen. Supreme sword heart allowed him to instantly see through and copy Noir's moves. These two talents were incredible, and Noir was determined to get them. Mihawk sheathed his black sword, giving a nod of appreciation to the young man. With such strong swordsmanship, he would be a good opponent in the future. Chapter 63. Despite holding back significantly, Mihawk still displayed considerable swordsmanship skills. With an unabashed look of admiration, he asked, "Young man, what's your name?" "Noir." Mihawk committed the name to memory and nodded. "I look forward to your future. You might turn out to be an interesting opponent." Noir confidently replied, "Of course, it won't be long before I defeat you with my swordsmanship." Mihawk chuckled, such arrogance. To defeat Mihawk, even with all Noir's current abilities, seemed unlikely. As the world's greatest swordsman who could duel with the 4 emperors, Mihawk couldn't be bested by mere devil fruit powers alone. Mihawk took out 2 bottles of wine from his small boat, sat down, and invited Noir, "Let's have a drink." Noir, momentarily stunned, laughed, "All right." This could be seen as a bond formed through their shared love of swords. They sat down, drinking and talking about swordsmanship. Robin, seeing the two men relax and converse, finally felt at ease. However, she couldn't help but feel puzzled by this method of forming friendships among men. As they drank and discussed swordsmanship, Noir learned a lot from Mihawk's casual remarks. Soon, a more thrilling system notification echoed in his mind. Meeting an important figure. Reward issued, Universal Talent Copy Card 1, Host's Exclusive Sword 1, Swordsmanship plus 3-0. Host's Exclusive Sword. Noir's thoughts delved into the system space, where a newly appeared, ominously shaped sword awaited. The hilt was a dark red-black, and the scabbard was engraved with eerie symbols, as if sealing something terrible. Noir, eager to wield the cool-looking sword, restrained himself since he couldn't just pull out a new weapon in front of Mihawk. Seeing Noir lost in thought, Mihawk asked, "Where are you headed?" Noir frowned and replied, "Sky Island, but we haven't found the way yet." "Sky Island, huh?" Mihawk pondered for a moment before retrieving a pointer from his belongings. The eternal log pose? Noir recognized the object and looked at Mihawk in confusion. Mahawk handed the permanent pointer to Noir. "I've heard there's an upward current near a town in this sea area. Some say it leads to Sky Island." "A town?" Noir glanced at the pointer and saw the location written on it, though he didn't recognize the name. Noir recalled that Luffy and his crew reached Sky Island through the perilous knock-up stream near Jai Island, which was almost a death trap. But there was an old man on Sky Island who mentioned another, slightly safer route. Could Mahawk's suggestion be that safer path? Clutching the pointer, Noir resolved to check it out, no matter the danger. He thanked Mahawk, who then prepared to leave. Though he hadn't been able to spar with his old rival, Mahawk felt it was worthwhile meeting a promising young swordsman like Noir. Walking shoulder to shoulder like old friends, Mahawk almost considered slicing up the overly friendly Noir. Why were his friends always such oddballs? While Mahawk was pondering this, Noir stealthily used his 2 copy cards on Mahawk. World's Greatest Swordsman and Supreme Swordheart, 2 top-tier golden talents, were now his. Watching Mahawk sail away, Noir quickly addressed the system about his overflowing talent slots. System, use World's Greatest Swordsman to replace Singular Focus. First, he replaced the long-held white talent. Next, with some hesitation, he considered what to do with Supreme Sword Heart. Initially, he thought of replacing either Bear Fruit, but then, he decided to try the new Talent Fusion feature. He hadn't used this feature since the system upgrade. Moreover, fusing 2 golden swordsmanship talents seemed the best combination. Fuse Supreme Sword Heart and World's Greatest Swordsman. After a moment of silence, the system completed the talent upgrade under Noir's expectant gaze. Talent fusion complete. New talent is now a fixed talent. Noir eagerly checked the new talent. What was once a brilliant golden hue now had a mix of dark. A string of new information appeared before him. Supreme Swordmaster, black gold quality, a mutation of golden quality, possessing the attributes of both World's Greatest Swordsman and Supreme Sword Heart, unparalleled in swordsmanship talent. When using sword techniques, all attributes such as speed, strength, and stamina are enhanced. Depending on the enemy's strength, there is a chance to trigger an instant kill. Defeated enemies may develop inner demons, hindering their growth. The black gold talent, shining with a unique radiance, left Noir astounded. Fusing 2 golden talents had created an even stronger super talent. With abilities from both golden talents, along with enhancements to all attributes, instant kills, and inner demons, Noir was thrilled. System, isn't golden quality the highest? How is there in black gold quality? The system responded, golden quality is the highest, but fusing 2 golden talents can produce a mutation, which is black gold quality. This mutated quality still falls under golden quality. However, this quality is exclusive to the host and does not exist in anyone else in this world. Relieved that he alone possessed this black gold talent, Noir began to see the system's fusion feature as a godsend. With this mutated talent, as long as he diligently trained his swordsmanship, he could undoubtedly surpass Mahawk as the greatest swordsman. Excitedly planning his future talent fusions, Noir remembered the system's reward, the exclusive sword. He retrieved the fiercely styled sword from the system. The cold touch of the unsheathed blade exuded a chilling intent to kill. Slowly drawing the sword from its scabbard, Noir found its black blade eerily similar to splattered black, with red lines depicting hideous faces as if the spirits of the damned were wailing. The sword's sinister aura was palpable, and despite being automatically recognized by the system, Noir could feel its rebellious and wild nature. Satisfied with his new weapon, Noir quickly understood its nature. This treasure was like a capable but rebellious child, not easily controlled and often trying to cause trouble. A difficult-to-handle devil sword, but one that wouldn't deter Noir. What to do with a troublesome child? Discipline it firmly until it behaves. Chapter 64. No matter how domineering a demonic sword is, it is ultimately a weapon. It goes where its master points. Only then is it considered obedient. Noir raised the demonic sword and slashed the air toward the sea, sending a dark red wave of sword energy slicing through the water. The whirlpool created by the slash lingered for a long time. Sensing its master's power, the demonic sword calmed down considerably. Noir examined his weapon, and the system provided its details. Named Sword Ghost Moro, a demonic sword custom made by the system for the host, with growth attributes that scale with the host's haki and strength. The blade repairs itself when stained with blood and can nurture a soul ghostly aura. It has a blood-draining feature, able to absorb the enemy's stamina and mental strength from any wound and transfer it back to the host. Noir shook Ghost Moro, confirming it was indeed a dangerous demonic sword. The fine sword Pure Heart had become less fitting for Noir's needs, and Ghost Moro appeared at the perfect time. Although it hadn't yet grown, Ghost Moro was already far sharper than Pure Heart. Noir removed Pure Heart and replaced it with his new love, the demonic sword Ghost Moro, at his waist, immediately feeling invigorated. Pure Heart, now out of favor, was relegated to a beautiful sword case for storage. Noir wasn't proficient in dual sword style and preferred the decisiveness of the single sword style. With a new destination, Noir returned to the ship and set sail toward the target according to the permanent pointer Mahawk had given him. Robin, curious, noticed Noir now had a new sword after going ashore but got no explanation when she asked, so she dropped the subject. Everyone has their secrets, much like how Robin couldn't understand how Noir knew so much about the poneglyphs. With the clue to Sky Island, Noir was in high spirits. The permanent pointer directed them to an island called Seething Island, not far from their original target, Jaya Island, so they didn't change their general course. During this time, Robin used the whitening lotion Noir had given her, and her tanned skin became smoother. Don't ask Noir how he knew this. He paid the price by washing clothes for 3 days. On a sunny day, Noir enthusiastically practiced his swordsmanship with Ghost Moro. Although his mutated talent had accelerated his progress, Noir knew he needed rigorous training. Many have squandered good talent. Robin found a spot to sit, reading a book and writing something. Noir, drenched in sweat from practice, curiously approached her and asked, "What are you researching?" Robin nodded slightly, handing Noir a towel. "I'm looking into the history of the Kingdom of Noidum." Noir wiped his sweat and asked, "What's the Kingdom of Noidum? Why are you researching it?" Robin was surprised. "Don't you know your homeland?" "Homeland?" Noir shook his head in confusion. "I was born in the East Blue." Robin pointed to the pendant around Noir's neck. "That pendant is a royal gear of the Kingdom of Noidum." "Huh?" Noir looked down at the pendant. He had worn it since his rebirth, never thinking much about its significance. Although the pendant's craftsmanship was good, Noir hadn't considered it special. But if Robin said so, could his previous self have been a royal? Noir sat down beside Robin. "I really don't know. I grew up in the East Blue and never met my parents." Robin gently touched Noir's pendant, firmly stating, "This is undoubtedly a symbol of the Noidum royal family. I've seen replicas in my homeland." Noir, seeing Robin lost in thought, asked, "Where's the Kingdom of Noidum? Why are you researching it?" Robin shook her head. "The Kingdom of Noidum was destroyed." "What?" Noir's expression froze. He thought he had found his previous self's home. But why was a perfectly good country destroyed? Suddenly, Noir remembered his name, specifically the mysterious D. He quickly asked, "Was it the world government?" Robin looked at him and nodded. "The government ordered it, and the Marine executed it, exactly 20 years ago." Also, Robin hesitated, with a complex expression. "It was 3 years before the Marine destroyed my hometown, Ohara." Noidum, Ohara. Noir pieced the information together. "You think Noidum and Ohara both researched things the government couldn't tolerate, so?" Robin nodded silently. "I suspected this after recognizing your identity, but it's just a guess without evidence." 20 years ago, before Noir was born, could his relatives have taken him to the East Blue? But where were they now? A kingdom founded by the D family, what were they researching? Even the single letter, D, could be a reason for a kingdom's demise. Regardless of whether Noidum's destruction was similar to Ohara's, Noir felt compelled to investigate for his previous self Sake. Noidum might be destroyed, but the island should still exist, right? Noir took a sip of his cold drink to calm himself and asked, "Where are the ruins of the Kingdom of Noidum?" Robin smiled and said, "In the New World, the second half of the Grand Line." Cough. Noir nearly choked on his drink. How did he get from the New World to the East Blue? How did he travel such a distance? Robin, resting her chin on her hand, smiled knowingly. "You must be wondering how you got to the East Blue." Even if his relatives escorted Noir, the world government and Marine wouldn't ignore a criminal escaping, especially hiding for so long. Unless someone protected him or his parents were powerful. He felt there was a missing piece but couldn't figure it out. Noir couldn't understand, but seeing Robin's beautiful profile, he quickly realized something else. No wonder Robin trusted him from the start, it was because of his background. They both were remnants, unwanted by the government, with their homelands destroyed. But Noir was luckier. He met Belmere and had a beautiful home. Chapter 65. The endless speculation about the future and the past continued, but the journey by sea did not stop. The journey to Sky Island was long, and Noir's ship sailed for a long time. Noir docked the ship near closest island's harbor, and both he and Robin disembarked. In this world, if you want to find out something, the best place to do it is usually a down-to-earth tavern. Such places are teeming with all sorts of people, and the comings and goings of countless individuals can provide a lot of hidden and important information. So Noir headed straight for a tavern. Standing at the door, they could hear the noisy chatter from outside, but when they pushed the door open, the conversation stopped abruptly. Inside the tavern, everyone who was drinking fell silent, staring menacingly at the two strangers with suspicious expressions on their faces. Noir and Robin, seasoned by many adventures, weren't uncomfortable in such situations. They calmly ordered a drink and found a seat. The patrons subtly judged their attire, trying to determine their origins. The woman was a delicate and sexy beauty, Probably just the man's mistress, probably without any fighting skills. As for the man, he was tall but looked like a young, inexperienced child. He even wore a sword at his waist, as if to put on a show. A child, could he really know how to use a sword? After watching for a while, the seasoned veterans felt that they had quickly figured out the duo's abilities. At a few tables behind Noir, a couple of burly men exchanged glances. Then a man with a face full of scars stood up and swaggered over with his drink. As he passed Noir, he suddenly tilted his hand and the drink, accidentally, spilled onto the floor. The man, angrily, shouted, "You little punk, are you looking for trouble? You spilled my drink?" At this the men at the two tables behind him stood up and surrounded Noir and Robin menacingly. "Hey kid, you spilled my friend's drink. How are you going to make it up to me?" they threatened. Noir and Robin remained calm, looking at them as if they were watching clowns. "A bunch of barking wild dogs," Noir said contemptuously. Robin, showing no emotion, said, "Are you going to twist their heads off?" Noir's face twitched and he said, "How can you say something so horrible with such a straight face? You little punk, why?" The man, furious at being ignored, suddenly found his face covered by a large hand. Noir pressed his hand against the man's face and said softly, "Sandification." With that, the man's expression changed to one of horror. He struggled to speak, but no words came out. His skin gradually dried up, and in no time at all, the living person turned into a desiccated corpse. Seeing this horrifying scene, the men who had surrounded them fell to the ground in fear, trembling and pointing at Noir as if they had seen a ghost. Those who had not joined the confrontation felt lucky to have stayed out of it. Noir looked at the group of cowards retreating frantically and said, "I want to ask you something, can you answer?" The men on the ground nodded frantically. "Ask anything, sir, we know everything." "Do you know the way to Sky Island?" Noir asked. Hearing this, they exchanged glances, unsure of how to answer. Noir frowned and asked, "What are you thinking, yes or no?" Startled, the guests pushed a clever-looking man forward, who said with a pained expression, "Sir, you see, Sky Island is just a legend. Near the island, there's a powerful sea vortex. Occasionally, a strong current shoots up into the sky. It's said to lead to a heavenly sea where Sky Island can be found." Noir raised an eyebrow. "You seem to know a lot, then why do you call it a legend?" The man explained, "Every year many pirates come here in search of Sky Island. But those who ride the current never return alive. No one knows if they have reached Sky Island, or if it even exists." Noir nodded and pointed to the man. "You, lead the way to the top of the sky." The man's face turned pale, shaking as he shouted, "No way, I'd rather die than go there. Who knows how many have already died there?" Noir, growing impatient, grabbed the fleeing man by the collar. "Just take me there, you don't have to stay." "Don't worry, I'll protect you," the man reluctantly agreed. Noir didn't stay long and turned to leave. The patrons watched in silent sympathy as the man was sent away. Noir and Robin stood on the deck of their ship while the guide rowed a small boat in front of them. After a while, Noir's keen sense of the weather alerted him to something. The guide called nervously, "Sir, madam, we're here." Robin frowned in confusion. "This place doesn't look any different from anywhere else." The guide quickly explained, "The vortex appears periodically. Any moment a strong current will surge up." Noir nodded and waved at the guide. "All right, you can go back now." Relieved, the guide gratefully rowed away, but before he got far, Noir's ship suddenly began to shake violently. A whirlpool began to form on the sea. The previously calm sea became a growing whirlpool. Soon the whirlpool was expanding rapidly, like a deep black hole. "Robin, hold on." Noir stood at the bow while Robin clung to the mast, ready for anything. Like the calm before the storm, a terrifying force gathered beneath the ship. Suddenly, a powerful surge from below lifted the ship, throwing Noir and Robin off balance. With a massive push, the ship was propelled skywards by a huge column of water. Beside them, the guide's small boat was caught up. Thrown into the air, the guide cried out in despair, "Why am I still caught in this?" His boat was torn apart and he fell into the distant sea. It didn't look dangerous, but he might have to swim a day to get home. 140 Chapter 66. A massive sea current shot up from the whirlpool and Noir gripped the ship's helm, struggling to control the direction. As the ship ascended higher and higher, to their surprise, the force of the upward current began to weaken. Robin, looking into the distance, saw an abrupt white cloud sea and shouted, "Noir, look over there." Noir looked ahead and saw a large mass of clouds that appeared to flow like water. Formed by clouds, was this the sea clouds? Noir steered the ship towards the sea clouds, but the ship had taken a beating and was in poor condition. Gritting his teeth, Noir jumped off the ship in Robin's startled cry, flying through the air. Falling rapidly, Noir reached the bottom of the ship, exerting great force with his arms, igniting the flames of the flame fruit from his elbows, and creating a powerful thrust. With his tremendous strength and ability, he guided the ship steadily towards the sea clouds. Managing to hover briefly using his flames, Noir was finally pulled back onto the ship by Robin's powers. Landing on the deck, Noir said, "Thanks." Robin shook her head, and they both safely landed on the exclusive sea clouds of the Sky Island. At an altitude of about 7,000 meters above the ground, they would need to ascend a bit more to find the island. The battered ship creaked ominously, making their voyage feel perilous. Following the upward sea current, Noir successfully navigated the route to the peak of the sky. Sailing in the sky was a magical experience, with the ship circling upward along the cloud sea, continually gaining altitude. The sensation of flying in the sky felt wonderfully strange to Noir, and even Robin was intrigued by their surroundings. Led by the cloud sea, Noir gradually moved from the peak of the sky into the depths of the cloud sea. This layer, as far as the eye could see, was an endless wide ocean. In addition, there was a structure standing on the sea, behind which was a stairway leading further up into the cloud sea. Noir, shielding his eyes, surveyed the area. This seemed to be the gateway to the upper sea clouds. He remembered that to enter Enel's, God's land, one had to pass through this place. As Noir's ship sailed slowly, he sensed through his observation Hawkeye a figure rapidly approaching. A half-naked man wearing a grass skirt with small white wings on his back was flying toward them. The man wore a bull mask and had strange jet-powered shoes, clearly heading straight for them. Carrying a long-barreled cannon on his shoulder, he leapt from the sea cloud, swinging the cannon at Noir and shouting, "Greedy outsiders, you shall not pass." From his appearance, was he a Shandian from the Sky Island? Noir frowned and extended his 5 fingers, calmly catching the cannon swung at him. The Shandians had been fighting to ring the golden bell and fulfill their ancestors' wishes for generations, a spirit Noir admired. However, dealing with troublemakers was another matter. Noir raised his fist and, under the astonished gaze of the Shandian, punched him in the nose. The mask shattered, revealing a young but fierce face. Recognizing him, Noir was about to speak when calls came from beneath the ship. "Wiper, we need to go, Enel's men have found us." Hearing the name, Noir remembered the character. In the world of pirates, there were many minor characters with impressive abilities despite their brief appearances. For example, Jin, who once dominated Sanji in the East Blue, and now the warrior Wiper. Equipped with a set of sea stone and numerous impact dials, Wiper nearly defeated the god Enel. Wiper, hearing his companion's call, glared fiercely at Noir. Hesitating for a moment, he jumped off the ship to join his companion. This small episode did not delay Noir's plans. Watching Wiper's retreating figure, Noir felt oddly interested. He planned to find some companions on the Sky Island. Wiper might be a good choice. He had already been considering potential candidates. Enel was one option. If he refused, Noir would beat him up and bring him along. If that didn't work, Noir would kill him and take the rumble fruit. Including Wiper, that would make 2. It would be ideal to find a gentle woman, too. The ship shouldn't have only one woman, Robin. Though he hadn't recruited anyone yet, Noir had his plans all figured out. After the Shandians left, Noir prepared to visit them after landing on the island. Meanwhile, their ship reached the gate. The gate, shaped like an arch, had a small room beneath it, seemingly guarded by someone. As they approached, a voice suddenly called out, "You too, entering the Sky Island requires an entrance fee." Another entrance fee? Noir squinted at the small house, from which an elderly woman emerged. She was extremely short, with small wings on her back, and her face was wrinkled. Holding a camera hanging around her neck, she blocked Noir and Robin with an expressionless face. Annoyed, Noir asked, "How much?" 10 billion extols per person, the old woman said flatly. Equivalent to 100,000 berries from the blue sea below. Not expensive, but why would the domineering Noir pay? The Belmere family didn't pay unnecessary fees. Noir shook his sword at his waist, threatening, "What if I don't pay a single coin?" The old woman glanced at Noir, who didn't look friendly, and said, "If you don't pay, you can still enter." Noir was taken aback, then nodded in satisfaction. "Then we won't pay, let's go." Robin, looking at the camera in the old woman's hand, sighed helplessly. It seemed they had already offended someone just upon arriving. The old woman nodded, and soon, Red Claws grabbed the ship, lifting it. This was a Sky Island Sea Cloud specialty, a speedy shrimp, used to carry people to the higher sea. Prepared by his observation Hawkeye, Noir was unfazed. The large shrimp quickly carried the ship towards the Cloud Sea staircase. After they left, the old woman took out a communication shell and reported in a slow voice. "Amazon, the gatekeeper of Heaven's Door, reporting to the Almighty God and the priests. 2 individuals have illegally entered the God's land. Please bestow them with divine punishment." 140 Chapter 67. Noir, carried by the express shrimp, had soared up to the white sea clouds at an altitude of 10,000 meters, unaware that he was now a wanted person on Sky Island. In the vast sea clouds of clouds, Noir's ship spotted distant islands. Cloud Islands supported landmasses, with layered structures forming aesthetically pleasing Sky Island clusters. Robin, gazing at the distant shore, marveled, "So this is Sky Island. It's truly magical." Noir nodded, examining Sky Island with great interest. This was a sight he couldn't have seen in his previous life. This bizarre world truly held all sorts of wonders. Before they could admire the view much longer, a loud crash came from beneath their feet. Noir quickly ran to check the ship's bottom, finding a large hole in the wooden planks. Noir promptly asked Robin to steer the ship towards the shore while he hastily used his sand ability to patch the hole. The battle-worn ship, after its final voyage, ultimately collapsed at the edge of Sky Island. The soft island clouds felt like standing on a beach. Noir and Robin stood on the Cloud Island, looking at their nearly disintegrated ship. Noir felt a pang of sadness. The ship had accompanied him through a long period of sea voyages, and its demise was truly saddening. Fortunately, the items on the ship weren't damaged, which brought Noir some comfort. Robin cautiously walked on the cloud beach, soon finding 2 cloud-made chairs. She sat down gently, exclaiming, "Crafting furniture from clouds, how interesting." Noir bounced around excitedly on the island cloud. These clouds looked soft but were actually very solid and highly moldable. It felt almost like sand on a beach, but more intriguing. Noir sat cross-legged, building castles with the clouds, as if rediscovering his childhood. As Noir was childishly building houses, a bright white fluffy tail suddenly appeared before him. Noir was startled and followed the big tail down to see a snow-white, petite fox. How cute! Robin, outwardly unresponsive, was secretly charmed. A Sky Island fox, so it should be called a sky fox or cloud fox, right? Delighted, Noir grabbed the little fox's tail, lifting it up, and said while licking his lips, "I wonder what Sky Island food tastes like." The little cloud fox seemed to understand Noir's words. Even while suspended in the air, its hind legs and 2 small paws moved frantically. Its tiny eyes glared angrily at Noir, as if condemning his heartlessness. Noir ignored the little creature's gaze, weighing its hind legs and muttering, "Good legs." Seeing the human's eyes gleaming with hunger, the initially lively cloud fox began to tremble, desperately twisting its body to escape. Worried about damaging the meat, Noir didn't grip too tightly, and the little cloud fox quickly broke free from his grasp, running towards Robin. The cloud fox swiftly jumped onto Robin's foot, its small paws clinging tightly to her leg, hiding its head under its big tail, as if thinking this would make it invisible. Robin bent down to scratch the little one's neck, feeling its body tremble, and said, "Cute little thing. I wonder if it has an owner." Noir scratched his head, unsure of what to say. At this moment, his ears twitched. Noir's keen hearing caught a distant sound, and he said, "I think I hear someone playing a harp." "It's coming from over there." Robin pointed in a direction, and they both walked towards the cloud beach. The fox, seemingly terrified, clung to Robin's foot, refusing to let go. She had no choice but to walk with this little burden. As they approached the source of the harp music, Noir and Robin were stunned. Above the sea of clouds, they saw a beautiful blonde girl in a high-necked light yellow dress. With her eyes gently closed and a lovely face, she had playful white feathered wings on her back, resembling a sacred maiden. Blessed by the sunlight, she was lightly strumming a harp. The melodious notes flowed from the maiden's delicate hands, the enchanting sound captivating Noir and Robin as they approached. "She really looks like an angel from heaven." Noir and Robin listened to the soothing music, reluctant to disturb the playing girl. However, the little fox at Robin's feet had other ideas. "Yip!" The little fox, hearing the harp, peeked out from under its big tail, looked around twice, then called out and ran over. The girl stopped playing upon hearing the sound. Seeing the fox running towards her, she called out joyfully, "Sue, where have you been?" The fox, named Sue, leapt into the girl's arms, looking pitiful as it stretched out its paw, pointing at Noir and itself, gesturing vigorously. The girl didn't understand its meaning. Fearing a misunderstanding, Robin stepped forward and said, "We just met it on the beach over there. It seems to have been frightened." Noir nodded seriously, saying, "Yes, this fox is really timid." Sue stared at Noir in disbelief, so angry that the little one started biting its own big tail. The girl showed no hostility towards the two and smiled as she introduced herself, "My name is Conus, and this is my cloud fox, Sue." Hearing its owner mention its name, Sue cooperatively raised its paw to greet Robin, then snorted at Noir. Robin smiled and patted its head, saying, "We came from the sea below. I'm Robin, and this is my captain, Noir." Perhaps because they had arrived on Sky Island, a place difficult for the Marines and world government to reach, the usually reserved Robin had become more cheerful. Conus's curious big eyes sparkled as she said, "You came from the Blue Sea? That's amazing, to be able to reach such a high place." Recalling the arduous journey to the top of the West, Noir said, "It was indeed troublesome. Our ship was destroyed, but at least we're still alive." At that moment, the sound of an engine roared through the sea of clouds. Konis looked at Noir and Robin, smiling apologetically. That must be my father, Pagaya. He's a waiver technician. Waiver? What's that? Robin asked curiously. Before Konis could answer, a tall, thin old man riding something resembling a jet ski, moving as fast as a seaplane, flew towards the beach. However, the more flamboyant the takeoff, the more disastrous the tree collision. Pagaya, riding the waiver, crashed hard into a nearby coconut tree. Then a coconut, hard as iron, fell from the tree, knocking the old man into the clouds. Father, Konis ran over worriedly, with Robin following to check on him. Here's a joke. The waiver repairman can't ride a waiver. Noir silently quipped to himself. 140 Chapter 68 Konis helped her father to his feet, while Pagaya rubbed his head and laughed. Waiver is quite difficult to steer. Robin helped the fallen waiver up, examining it as she said, Is this waiver? I think I read about it in a book. A ship that can sail without wind. Noir walked over to her side and reminded her, was it a book written by someone named Noland? Robin's eyes lit up, and she immediately recalled some information from the vast sea of books in her mind. The great liar Noland, so he was telling the truth? Robin crossed her arms and pondered, so the City of Gold truly exists? Noir was astonished. You know about this too? Well, considering the number of books Robin had read, it was probably much more than Noir's study materials. It couldn't be judged solely by the original work's portrayal. Pagaya, helped by his daughter, noticed Noir and said, So we have guests? Konis quickly introduced, Father, they're from the Blue Sea, Noir and Robin. The Sky Islanders seemed very hospitable. Pagaya warmly said, Since you've come to the Sky Island, take a good look around. It's been a long time since we've had visitors. Pagaya lifted waiver and led the way, while Konis and Robin chatted, and Noir looked around, feeling bored. The father and daughter led them up a soft cloud staircase, with many large clouds formed beside them along the way. Pagaya explained to Noir, that's the cloud processing factory, where island clouds are made. There are 3 types of clouds on the Sky Island. Sea clouds, which you sailed on, island clouds, which we are walking on, and processing clouds, which can be used to make furniture or building materials. Noir listened attentively, feeling that this immersive experience was quite different from the 2-dimensional world and very impactful. Seeing Noir's interest, Pagaya enthusiastically continued, The part of the Sky Island we live on is called Angel Island. The edge of the island is Angel Beach, where we just came from. My house is just a little further along this lovely road. Further along Lovely Road is the busiest street on Angel Island, Lovely Street. Talking about Lovely Street made Pagaya's eyes sparkle. Lovely Street is so much fun. When it gets lively, there are beautiful girls in miniskirts, bikini beauties, innocent girls, passionate young women. Noir listened more attentively, pondering deeply and feeling touched. This old man understands me. How could he waste the old man's kind intentions? He must experience the local customs of Lovely Street. This would make the Sky Island trip worthwhile. The 2 women beside them looked speechlessly at the old man and the young man lost in their thoughts. Robin, exasperated, thought, how did this guy get so absorbed so quickly? Konis awkwardly said, Don't mind him. My father is a bit scatterbrained sometimes. Then Konis casually asked, Robin, are you pirates? Robin shook her head. Nope. Konis, puzzled, asked, Then why did you come to the Sky Island? Usually, only pirates come here for the gold. Robin opened her mouth to explain, but after thinking carefully, she found it difficult to define their group. They weren't exactly a pirate crew, as Noir was a bounty hunter. They weren't a proper adventure group either, since she was a wanted criminal. While Robin was conflicted, Noir, with his extensive experience on the sea, didn't worry much about bounties and identities. After all, having sailed for so long, Noir understood that the further one went, the more inevitable it was to commit sins, regardless of one's nature. In other words, there were no purely good or evil people among the strong on the sea. Considering Noir's personality, who knew when he might be wanted by the world government? Oh, right. Maybe killing Wapol would earn him a bounty. After thinking for a moment, Robin hesitantly said, We might be a tourist. Konis. Huh? During their chat, Konis welcomed Noir and Robin to her home. The hospitable father and daughter busied themselves in the kitchen, bringing out several dishes. Noir looked at the food with a strange expression. The meat was definitely meat, but he couldn't tell what animal it was. The vegetables were also vegetables, but why were they so varied? Noir took a big bite of rice, and his eyes lit up. Delicious. Although he had master-level cooking skills, he had tried few dishes and lacked practical experience. He could definitely make such flavors himself, but achieving this level was quite impressive. As he devoured the food, Noir asked Pagaya, Uncle, this food is amazing. Did you make it? Pagaya shook his head proudly and said, My daughter Konis made it. She's the most beautiful on Angel Island. Konis blushed and smiled, while Noir's eyes suddenly brightened. According to the original story, this girl was indeed a gentle and beautiful maiden, though a minor character. Moreover, she was a musician and a good cook who ate little. A perfect, cost-effective addition to the crew. Oh, I mean, where else could he find such an excellent crew member? While Noir was considering inviting her aboard, Robin asked another question. Conus, is there no ruler on the Sky Island? Hearing this, Conus looked somewhat uneasy, and even the usually cheerful Pagaya seemed nervous. Conus whispered, the ruler of the Sky Island is the god, Enel, who has mighty powers. The god can hear people's conversations on the Sky Island and can punish anyone hiding in any corner at any time. Robin, unfazed, replied, is he that powerful? Conus nodded vigorously. The god also has 4 priests under him, who are also strong enforcers of the Sky Island's laws. Robin looked at Noir, who swallowed his food and said, observation hockey and devil fruit powers, not a big deal. Robin nodded, having full confidence in Noir's strength. If Noir could easily defeat one of the 7 warlords of the sea, Crocodile, could he not take on the ruler of a Sky Island? Noir's bright eyes turned to Conus as he asked, where is this god? I'd like to see who really holds God's power. 140 Chapter 69 Conus stared at Noir in horror and quickly covered his mouth, saying, the god can hear your voice, stop talking. Noir, unable to speak with his mouth covered, helplessly removed her hand and asked, I was just asking. Conus whispered, the god resides on God's island, the sanctuary upper yard. It's filled with verth and huge trees. Robin asked in confusion, verth? What's that? Conus's eyes showed longing as she said, it's the most precious thing on the Sky Island, only found in upper yard. Noir and Robin exchanged puzzled looks. Suddenly, an idea struck Noir, and he activated his soon and no mi ability, causing a handful of yellow soil to appear in his hand. Noir held out the soil and asked, is this it? Conus was dumbfounded by the sand that appeared out of nowhere, gently pinching a bit of it. This is verth? Pagaya and Conus exclaimed in shock. Pagaya rubbed the soil repeatedly and questioned, it feels a bit different from the verth in upper yard, softer and finer. Noir asked Conus for a bottle, filled it with sand, and said, this is sand. The soil in upper yard has moisture and nutrients, so there's a slight difference. Robin pondered aloud, the Sky Island has various clouds but no soil, which makes it very valuable. Pagaya took the bottle of sand like it was a treasure, while Conus couldn't hide her curiosity and asked, Noir, who exactly are you? How can you create verth out of thin air? Noir looked at the curious Conus and said, this is the power of a devil fruit. Your god is just someone who ate a devil fruit. Devil fruit? Conus had never heard the term. Noir smiled and said, they're rare on the Sky Island, but in the Blue Sea, many people who eat devil fruits gain these so-called godly powers. Conus's belief in her god seemed shaken by Noir's words. Really? Of course. Noir gave Robin a signal and said, Robin, show her. Robin lightly knocked on the table, and amidst pink petals, a delicate hand appeared. A literal hand reveal. Pagaya was so scared he collapsed, while Conus, though frightened, was also curious, staring at Robin's hand. Conus tried touching Robin's hand and said, this is also a devil fruit power. There are generally 3 types of abilities. One can transform into an animal, another grants superpowers like Robin's, and the third lets you become an element, like me. Noir pointed at himself, and Robin playfully slapped him on the face. Noir's handsome face burst open, revealing a body made of sand, which then reformed and healed. Conus was startled by Robin's action but soon understood upon seeing Noir's body. Pagaya, recalling something, pondered. He remembered that the previous god's horse could also transform into a bird. Conus quickly grasped the Blue Sea knowledge, realizing that the invincible god was powerful because of a devil fruit. A power to control lightning, Conus, still confused, asked, but... Noir, seeing Conus's hesitation, immediately knew what she wanted to ask and replied. The ability to monitor the Sky Island is called observation hockey. Mastering it can even let one see a short period into the future. Noir paused and continued, otherwise, its usual function is to sense things beyond the reach of eyes and ears. For example, outside your house right now, there's a group of people crawling on the ground, wearing berets. Conus was shocked and quickly ran outside to check, followed by Pagaya. After opening the door and taking a few steps, Conus saw the white beret troops crawling forward. The white beret troops were the direct subordinates of the god's priests and usually appeared where Sky Island laws had been violated. Conus nervously asked, Captain, what are you doing here? The white beret captain stood up and said, there are criminals from Angel Island here. They have illegally entered and need to pay a fine. Noir and Robin walked out of the house. The white beret captain looked at them and said, hey, Blue Sea people, you have violated the god's law and committed an 11th degree crime. You must pay 10 times the fine. Noir counted on his fingers. 2 people, 10 times the fine, that's 2 million berries. It's not like they didn't have the money. This small fine could be paid for fun. However, he wouldn't play along, expecting Noir to take out money for such a ridiculous fine? Impossible? Do they know who his sister is? Noir thought angrily. Noir picked his nose and said, "What if I don't want to pay? What will you do?" The white beret captain shouted angrily, "You're challenging the god's authority." He waved his hand, and the troops behind him all stood up, glaring at Noir. Conus fearfully tugged on Noir's sleeve, advising, "Noir, if you don't have money, I can pay for you. Don't go against the god." Noir sighed and said, "It's not about the money. There's no such thing as a god, only powerful people who call themselves gods. Even the monstrous four emperors didn't claim to be gods. Enel, living on a small sky island, was just a frog in a well. He hadn't experienced the harshness of the blue sea." The white beret captain, seeing Noir repeatedly challenge the god's dignity, angrily ordered, "Arrest this blue sea person. Don't let him insult the god." The white beret troops responded in unison, stepping on the spray shells to fly into the sky, attacking Noir. Noir sneered, about to act, but Robin stopped him. Robin smiled, crossing her hands on her chest, and petals began to flutter. Conus and Pagaya couldn't believe their eyes. The fierce troops rushed forward but were suddenly stopped in midair by hands growing out and breaking their joints. The airborne troops fell like dumplings, completely defeated. Noir looked at Robin and said with a smile, "Your ability can grow more hands now, huh?" He wondered if she could grow something else. Conus and Pagaya were stunned. Besides the shock of seeing the soldiers defeated, Conus also felt a longing for these mysterious powers. Was the blue sea really full of people with superpowers? Could she also have such incredible abilities? 140 Chapter 70? The white beret captain lay on the ground, shouting in anguish, "Attacking the white beret troops is a second-degree crime. You must face God's trial." Upon hearing the mention of God's trial, Pagaya and Conus's faces changed drastically. God's trial involved handing over criminals to the priests, who would torture and execute them through a series of trials. Moreover, the residents of Angel Island were obliged to deceive these criminals into entering God's Island, Upper Yard. This was a duty imposed by Enel upon the citizens of Angel Island. Conus, unable to deceive Noir and Robin, hurriedly pulled Robin aside and whispered, "Run, Sister Robin. The priest's trials are very cruel." Robin smiled gently and said, "It's not up to me." Conus was stunned and then looked at Noir. Noir patted her shoulder reassuringly and said, "Don't worry, we won't trouble you." "Would you like to join us?" Noir looked at Conus and asked. Conus was confused by his sudden question and said, "What?" Noir said, "We're going to Upper Yard, and when we come back, you should come with us to adventure in the Blue Sea." Without waiting for her agreement, he walked towards the white beret captain and said, "Take us to God's trial quickly, I can't wait." The white beret captain, seeing such an eager criminal for the first time, hesitantly said, "Okay, okay." The white beret captain drove the waver, carrying Noir and Robin, swaying as they headed towards the depths of the Cloud Sea. Conus watched their receding figures in deep thought. Could they really defeat the god? And could she really become their companion and venture into the Blue Sea? Conus's faith in God wavered, and her curiosity about the Verth-filled Blue Sea grew stronger. Noir and Robin, sitting on the captain's boat, acted like lords, causing the captain great pressure. He had seen many poor souls sent to God's trial, but never someone so eager to court death. When they finally saw an island lush with vegetation, the white beret captain breathed a sigh of relief. Once inside this island, he no longer feared these two would play any tricks. Noir and Robin disembarked and examined their surroundings. The plants here were extraordinarily large, as it scaled up several times from the plants in the Blue Sea. The dense tree canopy blocked the sunlight, allowing only faint rays to penetrate. Noir and Robin exchanged a glance and ventured deeper into the forest. As they delved further into the ancient forest, the surrounding sounds diminished, and occasional giant beasts that emerged were swiftly cut down. In the depths of Upper Yard, amidst ruins, a massive beanstalk pierced the sky. Among its huge vines, a grand palace stood. In the dim palace, blue electric arcs suddenly lit up, illuminating the entire hall. The rampaging blue lightning converged at a point, forming the shape of a person on the throne. This person wore a turban, had conspicuous long ears, was bare-chested, and had thunder drums attached to his back, lying arrogantly on the chair. This was Enel, the ruler of Sky Island, known as God. At this moment, Enel was in a bad mood. Using his powerful mantra, he had clearly heard what Noir said. Those disrespectful and blasphemous words. He was about to use his power to unleash sacred punishment and kill that kid. But unexpectedly, the kid had come to him on his own. Thus, he had to let him experience the hunt by the priests. In Enel's court, four bizarre-looking individuals knelt, awaiting the god's command. Enel addressed his four priestly subordinates. "An insolent fool has entered the island. You can have some fun with him." The four priests immediately grew excited and said, "Understood, we'll handle it." Enel nodded, then suddenly frowned and sneered, "Those pesky gorillas are back again." The four priests, upon hearing about the gorillas, were infuriated. Satori, the priest of the Ordeal of Strings, wearing aviator goggles. Cursed, those damn Shandians trespass on God's territory again. Another priest, Ohm, responsible for the ordeal of iron, adjusted his sunglasses and said, "Let me handle them, I'll make sure they never return." Enel nodded and said to the other two, "Besides the Shandian rats, those two criminals are for Gedatsu and Shira." "Yes." The two replied in unison, and then all the priests departed. Enel, half closing his eyes, disdainfully said, "Humans, how dare they challenge a god?" Noir, sensing the presence with his observation haki, scorned the voyeuristic Enel. Observation haki, after all, was only useful for battle alerts and searching. If it could actually see through things, Noir would use it every day. Just after mentioning observation, Noir's observation detected a small figure. A little girl dressed like a tribesperson was squatting on the ground, stealthily unpacking and filling a bag with something. Robin, moving silently, approached her, but before she got close, the girl suddenly jumped up as if electrocuted, grabbed her bag, and tried to run away. Already aware of her movements, Noir took a big step forward, blocking her path. The girl couldn't stop in time and crashed into Noir's leg, falling to the ground with a thud. The bag fell open, spilling a lot of soil. Noir picked up the bag and said, "You're here to steal soil? Are you a Shandian?" Though young, the girl had a fierce temper. She glared up at him, trying to grab her bag back, but Noir easily held her down with one hand. Noir, speaking softly as if to a child, asked, "Little girl, what's your name? How old are you? Do you need our help?" "Don't call me little girl," the girl angrily replied. "I'm Isa, 8 years old, and I'm a Shandian warrior." "You're a warrior at 8? Noir was skeptical of her claim. Robin glanced at him and nonchalantly said, "It's not that surprising. I had a bounty of 79 million berries at 8. Hiss. Noir thought back to what he was doing at 8. 140 Chapter 71. Robin bent down and patted Isa's head, asking, "What are you doing here? Isn't this a forbidden area of Sky Island?" Isa angrily shouted, "Nonsense, this is our Shandian homeland." Noir returned the bag of verve to Isa, saying, "Forget about being a Shandian warrior. This place is dangerous, you should leave quickly." Isa hesitated, confused, and asked, "Why? Aren't with the priests?" Robin shook her head and said, "Of course not." Isa finally relaxed a bit, holding her bag of soil tightly as she walked away silently. Robin whispered to Noir, "This girl seems quite pitiful." Noir nodded and said, "This island, Apeado, was originally the homeland of the Shandians in the Blue Sea. It was lifted to Sky Island by the knock-up stream. The rulers of Sky Island took over the island. Now, the Shandians are homeless and Enel and the Sky Islanders view them as outsiders. Of course, they are pitiful." Robin looked at him quietly and said, "Although I'm getting used to it, I'm still curious. How do you know so much?" Noir scratched his head and didn't reply. Robin sighed and said, "Fine, tell me when you feel like it." "Hee hee." Noir chuckled. Suddenly, a red glow appeared in his pupils. Isa seemed to sense something and quickly turned around. Noir also felt something and looked in the same direction. Robin, puzzled, followed their gaze. Among the trees, many white cloud balls had appeared, floating in the air. In addition, a rotund man with yellow round glasses was smiling at them from atop the cloud balls. "There's another one." Noir looked in another direction, seeing a man in a purple leather jacket with hair styled like spider legs. He was biting his lower lip, his limbs contorted unnaturally. Isa exclaimed in shock, "Two priests. Why are Priest Satori and Gedatsu here together?" "Are these the priests?" Robin glanced at Isa. She knew Noir had considerable hockey skills. But how could an 8-year-old girl have hockey too? What Robin didn't know was that Isa was a rare Kenbunshoku hockey prodigy, having awakened it at birth. Though her Kenbunshoku hockey was still basic, it was stronger than many in the Blue Sea, as if she had a head start. Unlike Robin, who, despite Noir's guidance, had yet to master any form of hockey. Among those present, it seemed only Robin lacked Kenbunshoku hockey. The round priest Satori bounced on the cloud balls and said, "Interesting, you sensed our arrival. Do you have mantra too?" Isa, scared, hid behind Robin, trembling. The priests are very powerful. Even Shandia's strongest warriors struggle against them. "Run! We can't beat them." Hearing this, Noir picked his nose and mocked, "Scared? Aren't you a Shandian warrior? Is this how warriors behave?" Isa, still a child, blushed and shouted, "Shandian warriors are the bravest, I'm not afraid." Satori, the priest of the ordeal of balls, scoffed at Isa, saying, "You're just a bunch of savage natives. How dare you covet God's island? Do you deserve it?" "That's our home," Isa said tearfully. Satori, uninterested in her words, waved his hand, and dozens of cloud balls flew toward them. Isa shouted, "These are Satori's ordeal of balls, they'll explode, dodge quickly." Noir smirked at Satori, who seemed confident of his victory. Feigning a mystical pose, Noir closed his eyes and whispered, "Let me show you the power of a god." Everyone was stunned, and before the priests could mock him, Noir shouted, Fire fist. A surge of orange light instantly lit up the forest. The searing heat, like a fierce tiger, formed a fist of flames that quickly consumed all the cloud balls. The cloud balls couldn't slow the fire fist at all. The roaring flames enveloped Satori. No! With a scream, the scorching flames charred Satori black. Barely alive, Satori was barely breathing. Dead? Dead? Isa stared in shock at the fallen Satori, then looked at Noir in awe. A priest, who was so hard for Shandian warriors to deal with, had been effortlessly killed by this man. Recalling the sudden appearance of the flames, Isa timidly asked, "Are why? Also a god?" Noir was about to speak when Robin patted Isa's head and said, "He's human, just stronger than most." Noir added, "Enel is the same, his power exceeds your imagination, but he's no god." Isa hesitantly nodded, pointing at the other priest, but what about that priest? The one who had been posing since his appearance. His companion had been defeated, yet he hadn't reacted at all. Noir shouted at him, "Hey, you can't talk with your mouth clamped shut." Gedatsu, shocked, said, "Is that so?" Robin muttered, "His coordination is just too poor." Seeing his companion defeated, Gedatsu struggled to untangle his arms and said, "I'm the priest of the Ordeal of Swamp. Blue Sea Person, why?" Before he could finish, Noir had already flashed in front of him, smashing his armed fist down. Gedatsu's mantra hadn't even reacted before he lost consciousness. Noir blew on his fist and said, "Fighting doesn't wait." Isa stared blankly at the two fallen priests. She couldn't believe it. In just a few minutes, both priests had been defeated with one move. Isa stammered, "Their mantra, why didn't it work?" Noir looked at her in surprise and said, "You don't know? It's simple. Just hit them when they're not paying attention." Isa stared at him blankly. Was mantra really so easy to counter? Noir wasn't lying. It was like a person playing a game. A skilled and aware player like Noir faced two players with decent awareness but terrible execution. How could that be a contest? 140 Chapter 72. Isa looked at Noir in awe but soon sensed a battle happening nearby. Noir chuckled and said, "It seems the priests have all come out. Are your people fighting them?" Isa nodded and said worriedly, "It's our guerrilla fighters. They plan to attack the priests. But the remaining two priests, Shura and Ohm, are the strongest among them." Noir scoffed and said, "Strongest among weaklings is still weak." Isa looked at Noir, her eyes pleading, and said, "Big brother, can you help them? It's too dangerous for them to fight the priests." Noir smiled and said, "Of course, because I'm looking for someone among the Shandians to join us." With that, Noir picked up little Isa. Robin followed closely behind, and they swiftly moved through the trees towards the battle. With their speed, they soon arrived at the battlefield where the priests and the guerrilla fighters were fighting. The situation was almost one-sided. The priests, though few in number, held the advantage. The Shandian guerrilla fighters had many fallen comrades. The most notable figure on the battlefield was the Shandians' strongest warrior, known as the Berserker, Wiper. He was wielding the same burned bazooka he had when he met Noir, his jet dials creaking under his feet. His face, as always, was grim and fierce, living up to his title. Noir's eyes lit up when he saw him. This was his first candidate for a crewmate, and sure enough, he was here. Priests Shura and Ohm were warily watching Wiper. The other guerrilla fighters were not a concern, but this berserker was different. He seemed to have undergone some special training. His fighting style resembled that of a wild beast, acting purely on instinct, making it difficult for their mantra to predict his moves. More frightening was his intense fighting spirit. He alone was almost able to hold off the two priests. The priest's attacks landed on him, but Wiper didn't make a sound. He repeatedly exchanged blows, willing to get injured just to harm the priests. Because of this, even though all three were similarly wounded, Wiper's momentum was stronger. Noir admired, as expected of someone I have my eye on, strong will and good talent. Robin watched Wiper and nodded, saying, "He's like someone born to fight." Priest Shura's eyes narrowed as he looked towards Noir's group and shouted, "Who's there? Come out." The answer came in the form of a sharp, dark blade strike. The flying slash seemed to disappear into thin air, reappearing only when it slashed across Shura, causing blood to splatter. A ghastly wound appeared on Shura's chest, twisting his ugly features. He spat out blood. "Why? Mantra didn't detect your attack." Shura, eyes red, propped himself up with his flaming spear, unwilling to accept defeat. Noir, holding his sword, Demon Blade, approached with seemingly light steps that sounded like death knells to those present. With the blood staining it, Demon Blade patterns glowed slightly. Noir looked down at Shura and said, "Mantra? You think I can't use that?" "Nonsense. This is a power bestowed by God. How could you have it?" Shura screamed, charging madly. Mounting a red bird, Shura thrust his flaming spear desperately. However, as the spear pierced Noir's body, everyone was stunned. Ohm muttered in disbelief, "How is this possible?" Wiper, with a serious expression, said, "A troublesome guy." The flaming spear shattered the fiery body, and Noir's smile appeared in Shira's terrified eyes. Unable to hit a physical body. This must be what you consider godly power, right? With that, Noir's body turned to flames, surrounding and burning Shira, his screams echoing through the forest. Noir lifted his hand, tossing aside the charged Shira, and turned to the last priest standing. "And you, do you want to play too?" Ohm's face changed multiple times. Then he bent down, seeming to prepare to draw his sword. Just as Noir thought he was going to fight, Ohm turned and ran without looking back. Noir despised their lack of courage. They acted all godly but ran faster than anyone when outmatched. Noir wanted to finish him off, but at that moment, a thick bolt of lightning gathered in the clouds above. The blue lightning, charged with energy, struck down like god punishment. Its target was the fleeing Ohm. Ohm, face ashen, looked at the descending lightning and screamed, "No, God." With a loud explosion, his charred body lay still. Then, another massive bolt of lightning struck down towards Noir and Wiper. The Shandians stood frozen in fear, and even Wiper felt some panic. Only Noir looked at the descending lightning with disdain. "Enel, you think too highly of yourself." Noir shielded Robin and told the guerrilla fighters, "Stay here and don't move." He raised his hands, and a thick black-purple aura erupted from his body, his Busashoku haki spreading out. With his talent, Noir could now project his Busashoku haki, albeit with some difficulty, but it was enough to block elemental attacks. The thunder roared over them, its might shaking all of Upper Yard. But when the dust settled, everyone emerged unscathed, their expressions filled with disbelief. Wiper, looking at Noir's black glowing arms, was filled with admiration. His blood boiled with excitement at this power. Noir, his arms slightly numb, withdrew his hands. The power of the rumble fruit was formidable. His own abilities, fire against lightning, sand against lightning, weren't the best defenses. He had to use haki to protect everyone. A female warrior next to Wiper noticed Isa by Robin's side and exclaimed, "Isa, you snuck out again." Isa, seeing her trusted big sister, ran over and said, "Reiki, look, I got a bag of Verth." Wiper's eyes turned cold. He knocked the bag out of her hands and scolded, "Fool! Who told you to come here? Aren't you afraid of dying?" 140 Chapter 72. Isa looked at Noir in awe but soon sensed a battle happening nearby. Noir chuckled and said, "It seems the priests have all come out. Are your people fighting them?" Isa nodded and said worriedly, "It's our guerrilla fighters. They plan to attack the priests. But the remaining two priests, Shira and Ohm, are the strongest among them." Noir scoffed and said, "Strongest among weaklings is still weak." Isa looked at Noir, her eyes pleading, and said, "Big brother, can you help them? It's too dangerous for them to fight the priests." Noir smiled and said, "Of course, because I'm looking for someone among the Shandians to join us." With that, Noir picked up little Isa. Robin followed closely behind, and they swiftly moved through the trees towards the battle. With their speed, they soon arrived at the battlefield where the priests and the guerrilla fighters were fighting. The situation was almost one-sided. The priests, though few in number, held the advantage. The Shandian guerrilla fighters had many fallen comrades. The most notable figure on the battlefield was the Shandians' strongest warrior, known as the Berserker, Wiper. He was wielding the same burned bazooka he had when he met Noir, his jet dials creaking under his feet. His face, as always, was grim and fierce, living up to his title. Noir's eyes lit up when he saw him. This was his first candidate for a crewmate, and sure enough, he was here. Priests Shira and Ohm were warily watching Wiper. The other guerrilla fighters were not a concern, but this berserker was different. He seemed to have undergone some special training. His fighting style resembled that of a wild beast, acting purely on instinct, making it difficult for their mantra to predict his moves. More frightening was his intense fighting spirit. He alone was almost able to hold off the two priests. The priests' attacks landed on him, but Wiper didn't make a sound. He repeatedly exchanged blows, willing to get injured just to harm the priests. Because of this, even though all three were similarly wounded, Wiper's momentum was stronger. Noir admired, as expected of someone I have my eye on, strong will and good talent. Robin watched Wiper and nodded, saying, "He's like someone born to fight." Priest Shira's eyes narrowed as he looked towards Noir's group and shouted, "Who's there? Come out." The answer came in the form of a sharp, dark blade strike. The flying slash seemed to disappear into thin air, reappearing only when it slashed across Shira, causing blood to splatter. A ghastly wound appeared on Shira's chest, twisting his ugly features. He spat out blood. "Why? Mantra didn't detect your attack." Shira, eyes red, propped himself up with his flaming spear, unwilling to accept defeat. Noir, holding his sword, Demon Blade, approached with seemingly light steps that sounded like death knells to those present. With the blood staining it, Demon Blade patterns glowed slightly. Noir looked down at Shira and said, "Mantra? You think I can't use that?" "Nonsense. This is a power bestowed by God. How could you have it?" Shira screamed, charging madly. Mounting a red bird, Shira thrust his flaming spear desperately. However, as the spear pierced Noir's body, everyone was stunned. Ohm muttered in disbelief, "How is this possible?" Wiper, with a serious expression, said, "A troublesome guy." The flaming spear shattered the fiery body, and Noir's smile appeared in Shira's terrified eyes. Unable to hit a physical body, this must be what you consider godly power, right? With that, Noir's body turned to flames, surrounding and burning Shira, his screams echoing through the forest. Noir lifted his hand, tossing aside the charged Shira, and turned to the last priest standing. "And you, do you want to play too?" Ohm's face changed multiple times. Then he bent down, seeming to prepare to draw his sword. Just as Noir thought he was going to fight, Ohm turned and ran without looking back. Noir despised their lack of courage. They acted all godly but ran faster than anyone when outmatched. Noir wanted to finish him off, but at that moment, a thick bolt of lightning gathered in the clouds above. The blue lightning, charged with energy, struck down like god punishment. Its target was the fleeing Ohm. Ohm, face ashen, looked at the descending lightning and screamed, "No, God." With a loud explosion, his charred body lay still. Then, another massive bolt of lightning struck down towards Noir and Wiper. The Shandians stood frozen in fear, and even Wiper felt some panic. Only Noir looked at the descending lightning with disdain. "Enel, you think too highly of yourself." Noir shielded Robin and told the guerrilla fighters, "Stay here and don't move." He raised his hands, and a thick black-purple aura erupted from his body, his Busashoku haki spreading out. With his talent, Noir could now project his Busashoku haki, albeit with some difficulty, but it was enough to block elemental attacks. The thunder roared over them, its might shaking all of Upper Yard. But when the dust settled, everyone emerged unscathed, their expressions filled with disbelief. Wiper, looking at Noir's black glowing arms, was filled with admiration. His blood boiled with excitement at this power. Noir, his arms slightly numb, withdrew his hands. The power of the rumble fruit was formidable. His own abilities, fire against lightning, sand against lightning, weren't the best defenses. He had to use haki to protect everyone. A female warrior next to Wiper noticed Isa by Robin's side and exclaimed, "Isa, you snuck out again." Isa, seeing her trusted big sister, ran over and said, "Reiki, look, I got a bag of Verth." Wiper's eyes turned cold. He knocked the bag out of her hands and scolded, "Fool! Who told you to come here? Aren't you afraid of dying?" Chapter 73. Isa dropped the dirt she was holding, glaring angrily at Wiper. "I'm not afraid, I'm a Shandia warrior too." Wiper grabbed Isa by the collar, lifting her off the ground as he glared at her. "Are there no more Shandians? Do we need a kid like you?" Isa kicked her legs, her eyes welling up with tears as she protested, "I am useful." Wiper threw the small Isa to the ground and kicked her dirt-filled bag aside, his tone icy. "Useful for what? Stealing this Verth? Only to get killed by the priests?" Isa glared at Wiper before quickly standing up and running away, wiping her tears. Reiki looked at Isa, then at her comrade Wiper, sighing helplessly before chasing after Isa. Wiper waved his hand impatiently, instructing his team, "Take a break. I'll give further orders later." Once the team dispersed, Robin's sultry voice broke the silence, so harsh. Noir nodded in agreement. "She's just a child. No need to be so harsh even if she made a mistake." Wiper, with his back to the two, replied, "Shut up." As he spoke, Wiper used his body to shield the team's view as he picked up Isa's bag. He then began refilling it with dirt. Noir raised an eyebrow as Wiper resolutely said, "The homeland of the Shandians must be reclaimed with our blood and lives. If there are to be sacrifices, it should be us. Isa, that little kid, should just live a safe and boring life." Noir chuckled while Robin remarked, "He's quite a complicated person." Wiper looked up at the massive giant vine spiraling into the sky, his fierce face filled with determination. "Once we defeat Enel, do you think Isa will still care about such a small bag of Verth?" He looked directly at Noir, serious. "Thank you for protecting Isa and my team." "No, I didn't." Noir started to respond politely, but Wiper cut him off abruptly, "But this island is our home. You are a benefactor, and the Shandians will never offend you. But please leave as soon as possible. We are going to fight Enel to the death here. We don't want to involve you." Noir looked at Wiper, speechless. "Why are you so blunt? Besides, you can't defeat Enel on your own." Robin sighed, covering her forehead with her hand. "You're not much better at talking than he is." Wiper didn't get angry at Noir's words, surprising him. "The 4 priests are dead. This is our best chance. We have no retreat." Noir thought for a moment before suggesting, "Actually, we can work together." Wiper promptly refused, "No need. You've already helped me enough." Noir shook his hand dismissively. "Don't be so quick to refuse. I'm not helping you for free. I want something in return. If you're willing to sacrifice yourself to reclaim your homeland, Would you be willing to trade your life for a powerful ally if you failed to defeat Enel? Such straightforward and crude words resonated with Wiper. He looked at Noir, asking, "What do you mean? Do you want my life?" Noir patted his shoulder. "If I help you defeat Enel and you can't, then you'll owe me your life. You'll join me and serve under me in the Blue Sea." Wiper considered the offer carefully, staring into Noir's eyes. "Don't you want to ensure this operation's success?" Noir added, breaking Wiper's defenses. For the future of the Shandians, his own life was inconsequential. Even though Wiper was reluctant to trust outsiders, witnessing Enel's godlike attack earlier had shaken him. Not because he feared death, but because he feared losing his comrades. Wiper extended his hand, his voice cold. "Deal." Noir, accustomed to Wiper's stern demeanor, bumped fists with him. With Wiper and Conus on board, the only challenge left was Enel. Recruiting Enel would be straightforward. Defeat him and drag him along. Noir wasn't interested in negotiating with him. Noir and Wiper's agreement led to Noir naturally joining their guerrilla group. Robin quickly bonded with Reiki and the other female warriors, managing to soothe Ice's hurt feelings. However, the little girl might hold a grudge against Wiper for a few days for scolding her. Noir and Wiper walked at the front of the group. Having fought together once, Wiper respected Noir's combat prowess. Curious about many things, Wiper asked Noir about his and Enel's devil fruits and haki. Wiper wasn't very interested in Kenbunshoku haki but seemed quite taken with Busashoku haki. Especially when he learned that Busashoku haki could hit devil fruit users, his eyes lit up. With this ability, fighting Enel wouldn't be so daunting. Answering Wiper's questions, Noir didn't hold back, offering some guidance. After all, Wiper was his future crew member and not an outsider. There was no concern about Wiper breaking his promise. Wiper had proudly claimed to inherit the will of his ancestor, the great warrior Calgara, and valued every promise. Although Noir couldn't remember who Calgara was, Wiper's character reassured him. Enel seemed content to maintain his facade, remaining in his sky palace, waiting for challengers. The guerrilla group encountered many of Enel's soldiers along the way, but they all ended up as cannon fodder. After a long journey, Noir and his group finally arrived at the ancient ruins beneath the giant vine. "This is Shandora?" Noir marveled at the grand ruins. Wiper nodded, a rare smile appearing on his resolute face. "This is our ancestors' home." Noir examined the ruins, thinking of Robin. She would undoubtedly be interested in this place. He remembered that Shandora's golden bell contained an ancient poneglyph. As expected, Robin paused, her eyes filled with hope as she looked at Noir. Noir nodded. "Stay here for a while. I'll come for you after I deal with things." Wiper quickly added, "I'll have Reiki stay with you, and Isa too." Noir, understanding Wiper's concern for the little girl's safety, agreed. With preparations complete, the group climbed the vine towards Enel's palace. Chapter 74. Noir and the others were charging toward Enel's palace. Meanwhile, Enel inside the palace was furious, but he forced himself to maintain a smile. With his wide-ranging mantra, Kenbunshoku haki, he sensed a group of ants charging toward him. Initially, Enel intended to rush down and kill them directly. But his arrogance reminded him of his identity, and he restrained himself, waiting for them like a true boss. The one Enel hated the most was the outsider from the Blue Sea, Noir. That guy had the ability to use mantra and could even control fire. One controls fire, and the other controls lightning. Enel felt his throne was shaken. Enel forced himself to calm down. Even if he couldn't deal with Noir, what could Noir do to him? Just a little more time. Enel glanced at the large room hidden deep in the palace, where a massive ship was being constructed. The Arc Maxim was almost complete. Once finished, he could use the Arc Maxim to go to the Endless Verve to rule. That's where a god should reside. Enel lifted his golden staff, gazing at the palace gate from the vine. As he expected, a loud crash sounded as the sturdy gate was torn down like paper. Many Shandia warriors rushed in with weapons, surrounding Enel in a rebellious manner. Seeing his enemy, Wiper's eyes turned red with rage. He charged forward, stepping on clouds with his burning bazooka. Enel looked disdainfully at the mortal daring to offend a god. The golden staff, refined by lightning, turned red-hot and reshaped into a trident. Wiper leapt into the air, blue-white flames spewing from his bazooka. Enel, with closed eyes and a mocking smile, leisurely sidestepped. The golden trident thrust forward like a snake toward Wiper's neck. Wiper narrowly dodged, and the Shandians, seeing this, rushed in. Lightning bolts rained down from the palace ceiling as Enel fought fiercely with the Shandia warriors. Noir leaned against the gate, watching. Their agreement was that Noir would intervene only if Wiper couldn't handle Enel. Wiper needed to experience some hardship first. Despite Wiper's strong will and combat skills, almost all attacks were ineffective against Enel's Guro Guro no Mi, Rumble Rumble Fruit. Initially, Wiper had Sea Stone, Kairoseki, from the Blue Sea, catching Enel off guard. But it lasted only for one move. Enel, the embodiment of lightning, was too fast for Wiper to catch. Holding his golden trident, Enel sneered at the fallen gorillas. How dare you ants oppose a god? You've gone through so much trouble, but, now, die. The sharp trident plunged down, lightning arcs violently stimulating Wiper's senses, the deadly weapon magnifying in his pupils. At the critical moment, Noir finally acted. A dark red blade intercepted Enel's trident with ease. Noir, gripping his sword Kumori, twisted his wrist, sending the trident flying from Enel's hand with powerful force. Enel stared at Noir in disbelief, while Noir looked at him with amusement. System, show me Enel's talents, Noir commanded in his mind. Name. Enel Devil Host Rumble Rumble. Red quality, has eaten a logia-type devil fruit, transforming his body into electricity, granting control over lightning. Seize rejection. Purple talent, gaining the power of the devil also brings its curse, making the user weak in seawater, unable to use abilities actively. Electric wave mantra. Red quality, using his own Kenbunshoku haki and unique electric body to expand his haki into a wide-range sensory ability. Arrogant false god. Red quality, a conceited personality, the less he knows, the more arrogant and conceited he is. Intelligence drops by 20% in the first battle with an enemy, drops by 10% after a victory, and by 5% after subsequent victories, and so on. However, if defeated, this talent is lost for a period, and if severely defeated, it is lost permanently. Enel's Rumble Rumble fruit is also red. Noir pondered for a moment. It seemed that none of the devil fruits he had copied had surpassed red quality. It looked like golden quality devil fruits were probably exclusive to high-ranking Marines and the Yonko. As for the arrogant false god talent, Noir found it quite fitting. No wonder Enel seemed to get dumber when fighting Luffy. If this kept stacking, his intelligence might even drop below Luffy's. To Noir's surprise, Enel's mantra talent, though impressive in range, was only red quality. Enel's strongest aspect of mantra was its island-wide coverage, unmatched by others. Given Enel's nature, even with his fruit-enhanced haki, he likely never trained hard. Noir's disappointment was evident. Enel, seeing Noir's disappointment, fumed, veins popping on his forehead. You insolent wretch, how dare you defy a god? Noir nonchalantly cleaned his ear, swinging Kumori. You're too noisy. Influenced by his talent, Enel arrogantly electrified himself, boasting, without sea stone, how will you face me? Slash. A bloody gash opened across Enel's chest. Enel was stunned, then screamed in pain. Why, it hurts so much. A strange warmth flowed from the cursed sword into Noir, instantly restoring his energy. Noir hadn't expended much energy, but the backlash nearly overwhelmed him. Realizing he couldn't ignore attacks, Enel clutched his wound, baffled. What kind of sword is that? How can it hurt me? Wiper, having moved his comrades to safety, stared at the haki-coated sword. He then punched the ground in frustration, muttering, if only I had that power. Honestly, if Enel hadn't eaten a logia fruit, Wiper might have defeated him. Wiper's resolve surpassed ordinary men, but Enel's vile nature was a huge disadvantage. Enel kept shocking his body, fiercely striking the 4 thunder drums on his back, shouting, I'll show you the power of a god. Chapter 75. The sound of thunder drums, bolstered by electric light, was soul-stirring. The deafening thunder completely engulfed the entire palace. Enel was shrouded in a chaotic current of electricity. His body swelled into a massive blue thunder giant in an instant. This thunder giant, however, looked somewhat portly, with a notably prominent beer belly. 200 million volts. Thunder god. Enel's voice boomed from the mouth of the thunder giant, resonating like a holy proclamation in everyone's hearts. Enel looked at Noir, who seemed as insignificant as an ant, and laughed arrogantly, mere mortal. Let me show you the power of a god. With Enel's wild roar, the giant thunder hand slammed down towards the crowd. The powerful force and terrifying current left the Shandians in a daze. Is this Enel's true power? With this one slap, the entire upper yard might be destroyed. Noir gazed calmly at the thunder hand, a sharp purple glint shining in his deep black eyes. His whole body was enveloped in haki, which almost solidified, converging onto his demonic blade, making it even more sinister. Since merging 2 golden swordsmanship talents and undergoing rigorous training, swordsmanship had become Noir's strongest attack method. Flames rose and swirled from beneath his feet. Noir, riding the surging fire dragon tornado, faced Enel's thunder hand head-on with a drawn blade. The previously blue electric sky was now replaced by the inky blackness of his sword light. Holding his demon sword, Noir's powerful slash cleaved through the thunder god's body, sweeping away the electricity that filled the air. Noir's figure stood in mid-air, appearing like a god slayer. Wiper stared at Noir in shock, his mouth agape, almost large enough to swallow an Isa. Defeating priests was one thing, but even Enel was defeated with a single slash? Noir elegantly landed, sheathing his sword, and brushed back his black hair with a flare. He looked at the blood-spewing, unconscious Enel and pondered. Should he kill Enel and take the rumble fruit? However, Noir was interested in that large ship, the Arc Maxim, which required massive electrical power for energy. He was alone and would definitely need to change talents later on. Excluding the 6 talents he could fuse permanently, appearance, swordsmanship, the 3 forms of Haki, and physique. Noir still wanted to fuse 3 devil fruit abilities into the remaining 4 slots. 2 logia, zone, or paramecia fruits each fused once would yield 3 monstrous dark gold talents. This would make him versatile and unbeatable, with 1 slot left to change talents as needed. A perfect plan. With this in mind, it seemed better to keep Enel around as a living battery. Taking this guy to the Blue Sea for a few battles should do the trick. Of course, despite saying that, Noir still intended to take Enel's abilities. Having used up the copy cards on Mihawk's talents, he was fortunate enough to get another from their newfound friendship. Now, he was out again. Replacing the bear fruit with the rumble fruit, a fruit that purely enhanced physique, was no longer necessary. The bear fruit was impressive in helping him through the novice stage, but now, forget the mimic fruit. The fire, lightning, and sand logia abilities alone were among the best in the sea. Noir happily absorbed Enel's abilities when Wiper approached, asking, "What about this guy?" Noir picked up Enel, asking, "Don't you want to kill him for revenge?" Wiper shook his head, replying, "I can tell he's useful to you. Killing him doesn't matter to me. Our grudge isn't just with Enel, but with all the Sky Island gods." Noir nodded, realizing he'd been thinking wrongly before. The Shandians lost their homeland not because of Enel alone. 400 years ago, when Upper Yard rose to the Sky Island, the ruling gods started seizing it and waging war. Enel was just like the previous gods. In terms of hatred, Wiper probably felt the same about Enel and Gonfall. Noir's eyes shifted, and he chuckled, "Speak of the devil." Wiper was taken aback, turning to see and tensing up again. The former god, Gonfall, that damn guy. Wiper hefted his burn bazooka, aiming at the person flying on a skyhorse. A bird with the horse fruit spread its wings, and Gonfall, riding the skyhorse, looked like a sky knight. Gonfall stared in disbelief at the Thundering Palace, muttering, "Enel, defeated?" He'd come because of the commotion in Upper Yard, but to find the godlike Enel beaten and carried by a Blue Sea person? Noir tossed Enel to Wiper, calling up to Gonfall, "Old man, stop looking down on me and come down to talk." Gonfall frowned, his white mustache twitching, and shouted, "Who are you? Why are you with the Shandians?" Wiper squinted, about to shout back when Noir suddenly moved. Black sword light flashed, carrying annihilating power towards Gonfall. The white mustache on one side of his face was instantly obliterated. Cold sweat broke out on Gonfall as Noir's icy voice reached his ears. "I said, come down." Unlike Enel and previous gods, Gonfall wanted to resolve the Shandians and Sky Island's conflict. Unfortunately, the hatred of the Shandians, who lost their home, couldn't be resolved by time or negotiations. In the original story, Enel's plan to destroy everything on Sky Island forced both sides to face a calamity, leading to a peace agreement. But now, with Wiper on his side, Noir didn't want the war to continue but had no problem letting Wiper vent. Under Noir's threat, Gonfall dared not say more and obediently descended on his skyhorse. Gonfall dismounted, respectfully bowing to Noir, and hesitantly asked, "Sir, about Enel." Noir interrupted, defeated. "I'm taking him. Don't worry, he won't trouble you anymore." Gonfall glanced at Enel on Wiper's shoulder and asked, "May I know your purpose in doing this?" Noir sneered, pointing at Wiper. "I made a deal with the Shandians, helping him out. And one more thing." Noir looked at Wiper and Gonfall, speaking with an unquestionable tone, "From now on, Upper Yard belongs to the Shandians, and the Sky Island is yours, Gonfall. Whether you trade or feud, I don't care. But here, there will never be war again."